All right, guys, what's up? It's Jack, and welcome back. And today we're going to be talking about, well, I'm doing this live this time because I've done multiple takes on it. So it's like, hey, I might as well do a live. So I want to talk about my entire Call of Duty history and my personal experience from COD to COD in this kind of live commentary. So I'm just going to tweet the link just in case anybody's awake or just in case anybody's on the other side of the pond that feels like watching and having this discussion because quite frankly, when this like my Call of Duty history is very interesting when I when I go back and think about it and when I talk about it, especially when I did a couple of practice takes over the last week. So let me just tweet this out. And we should be good to go. All right. So my my Call of Duty history. So when did it all start? When did I first start playing Call of Duty? How did YouTube come into play? How does this all make sense, right? Well, okay, let's start at the very beginning. So, when I first started playing Call of Duty, it was actually Modern Warfare 2, and believe it or not, I didn't even know about Call of Duty except for from the word of mouth. I had no idea about the popularity of COD 4. I just wasn't familiar with Call of Duty at all. All I know is that by the time Modern Warfare 2 came out or was about to come out, everybody and their mother was talking about it. At the time, I had been teaching martial arts at the time. I was in the middle of my martial arts teaching career and just my martial arts career in general. And I had a few students, and granted, I was in my early to mid 20s at the time. And my students that were in high school were asking me, hey, did you get Modern Warfare 2 yet? Did you get Modern Warfare 2? Because they knew that I loved playing video games. So they ended up asking me time and time again. And there were more than one of them, especially since, a couple of them were brothers. So they were like, did you get Modern Warfare 2? And I'm like, no, I did not get Modern Warfare 2. I was pretty much playing Halo at the time. That was like my main multiplayer game. And I was playing a ton of other games as well. So Halo was the main multiplayer shooter that I was playing. And basically that was it. I was a 100% Halo fan. There was no other multiplayer that had grabbed my interest. And again, like I said, I didn't know anything about COD 4. I didn't know anything about Modern Warfare 2 until the word of mouth came out. But then I went and looked at my friends list. I went and looked at my friends list in the entire like dashboard, right? I looked at the entire Xbox 360 dashboard, and rest in peace, Xbox 360 dashboard. It was the best dashboard ever, by the way. And I look at my friends list. I mean, it wasn't like anything impressive in terms of the amount of friends that I had or anything. Most of the people that I had in my friends list were people that I either knew in real life or that were friends of friends, right? So anyway, I look at my friends list on the dashboard and I see that every single person, if not almost every single person, is on Modern Warfare 2. And I'm like, what the hell is going on here? I'd never seen anything like that before. I'd never seen that many players playing the exact same game on my friends list ever, like for any game, no matter what. So I was like, what is going on here? So, and obviously I would always get into parties with my friends and we would talk and all that kind of good stuff. So, eventually what ended up happening was I would end up getting the game. And the way I ended up getting the game was, well, on a weekend, because I had weekends off at the time at that job, I would basically be like, okay, I'm bored of playing all these different games that I already have. And it's like, okay, fuck it. Let's go to Walmart. I'm going to probably go get Modern Warfare 2. So the guy at the electronics section at Walmart, I basically asked him about Modern Warfare 2 and what he thinks about it. And the guy was probably anywhere from around my age range, either around my age range or like slightly older or slightly younger. He was within my age range. And I asked him about it. And his basic answer was, dude, the multiplayer is where it's at. And I was like, okay. So, but I didn't play games back then just for the multiplayer, believe it or not. I actually, with every new game that came out, this included the Halos, what's it called? I always played it what I would consider traditionally. And what I mean by this is I would play them, I I would play them like with the campaign first, and then I would go into the secondary mode, and then I would eventually go into multiplayer. But basically, traditionally for me, playing the campaign was where it was at first for like pretty much any game that I played. Like no matter what, if it had a story mode, I would play that first, whatever game it was. So when I picked up Modern Warfare 2, I quickly realized that it was basically like a high action movie. It was kind of like, it was pretty much a Michael Bay movie. I mean, it was like a Michael Bay movie and basically on steroids, and you were in charge of it, right? I mean, well, you were in control of it. You got to play as a multitude of different soldiers, so you weren't just limited to, one character. It would be the same story, but one character. And then eventually, what ended up happening was, I would play the campaign, I would beat it, and I was actually very, very surprised that it was over within 5 or 6 hours. And also the mechanics were different because you had to hold down the left trigger to aim down sights, and aim down sights back then for me personally was new, because in Halo it was different. You would zoom in or scope in, so it was very different. So the mechanics were different, so that took a little bit of getting used to. And even though it would take getting used to, it made complete sense, and it was something that I really didn't mind in the long run. And it felt really weird at first, and it was really weird to be on target, but hey, you ended up getting used to it one way or another, right? So and when I played the campaign, I thought it was a whole lot of fun. And as a matter of fact, I thought it was so fun that I wanted to play it again, except this time I wanted to play it on veteran, because I saw that it was very possible for me to beat the game on veteran if I played really slowly, really tactically. And I hate to use that word tactically, but basically I had to play it as if it was real, right? Like I couldn't take more than 1 or 2 bullets or else I'd die. So I would go from cover to cover, just taking my sweet old time, taking out target after target. And eventually I would rinse and repeat that in the game, and I would end up beating the game on veteran, and I would unlock the other achievements, which was great because I was kind of an achievement player back in the day. Whenever an achievement was close, or whenever I liked the game so much, I would try to do everything in that game. So with Modern Warfare 2, I actually, played the campaign twice. Once on regular, and then the other time was on what's it called? Veteran. So, and it was a lot of fun. It was quite a contrast from Halo, but I wouldn't say it was better or worse. I'm just saying, like, in terms of the overall fun factor, um Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 was just as good to me, and in some ways better, in some ways not as good. But it was definitely a thrill ride. It was definitely a ride, that's for sure. It was, like I said, it was like an action movie, a high action movie, and it would be a whole lot of fun. So then I ended up playing Spec Ops, and I didn't stop playing Spec Ops up um, until I got to what's it called? Until I got stuck, and then I would get my friends to join me in a party, and I basically said, "Hey guys, help me out, get all these 3 stars," because I wanted to get all the 3 stars. And it was very addictive because it would get you to try it again. I mean, there were basically Spec Ops were like these short little missions that were kind of related to uh, these short missions that were kind of related to the campaign, but they would be fun, and they'd be really short, and you basically had to go from point A to point B. Sometimes you had to do it within a time limit. Sometimes you had to, it really depends, so you had to accomplish a whole bunch of these different challenges for each one of the stars. And if you did all 3 within the time limit, you would get all 3 stars. And there was also a difficulty as well for that, to get all 3 stars. So it was a challenge, but it was a fun challenge, and I would do it time and time again until it was done. And then pretty much after that, I would get stuck a few times, and again, I would call for my friends to help me out, and we would co-op it. And I think you could only co-op with one friend, I believe. So we would co-op it, and we would get it done. And that was a lot of fun. And then here we go. Eventually, we would get into the multiplayer, right? So in Modern Warfare 2, with that multiplayer, I can tell you wholeheartedly that there was one game specifically, and I'll never forget it. I went 6-40. I had no idea what the hell I was doing. I don't remember the game mode that we were playing. We might have been playing Domination. I'm not sure. Because if it was Team Deathmatch, the blame would have been solely on me as to why we lost, going 6-40. So I was spawning in. I was getting picked off from God knows where. Plus, there was the whole streaks and everything like that that would be dropped on me as well. It was, I just had no idea what the hell I was doing. The pace of the game was so much different than Halo, right? I mean, granted, I didn't know what I was doing in Halo either, but I was sure as hell a lot more familiar with it since that's all I was playing beforehand in terms of multiplayer shooters. So with Call of Duty, it was like literally like it was a completely different game. It was a completely different beast. It had a different pacing, and there were a whole bunch of things in the multiplayer that Halo did not have that I actually liked. And I completely understood upon dissecting the game, so to speak, right? And trying to figure things out in terms of what the hell is all this stuff, right? I completely understood why people loved Modern Warfare 2 and why they just loved Call of Duty in general, because the game simply gave you so many options, like an incredible amount of options that Halo did not. Like, for instance, there were challenges to do in game, there was a progression system, there was a progression bar in terms of the challenges that you would do, like whether you were playing with a certain attachment or whatever it was. Like, there were challenges up the wazoo, there were weapon camos to go for, there were prestige levels to unlock, and on top of that, you could create your own class and customize your weapons. Go figure. All these things that you couldn't do in Halo, right? And on top of that, you would get rewarded for going on streaks without dying. Go figure, right? So there was also the kill streak system to top it all off. You know, upon everything else, there was also the kill streak system, which was the big game changer in Modern Warfare 2. The big highlight, one of the big highlights in Modern Warfare 2 that made it stand apart from COD 4 was the kill streak system, right? So now that you could choose which kill streaks you wanted, that was a big deal. That was absolutely a huge deal, and a lot of players absolutely loved it, and there was a little bit of something in there for everybody. So if you weren't that good, guess what? If you weren't that good, you didn't you simply didn't go for the high ones, and if you were good, you would go for the high ones, etc., etc. So Modern Warfare 2 was literally like perfect for its time. It came out at the right time. It had all the elements that people would love about a first person shooter for years to come, and that's why it had the success rate that it had. Now, despite the fact that I absolutely got my ass handed to me whenever I would play the multiplayer, despite all that, I would actually 100% enjoy the game. Like, I didn't care of how good or how bad I would do. In Halo, I cared more because I had played Halo for years at the time. And because I played Halo for years, if I ended up performing poorly, it would I wouldn't be too happy about it. But with Call of Duty, I didn't care. And not only did I not care, but the whole unlocking challenges, progression, and weapon attachments, and like pro perks, and just unlocking perks by leveling up and stuff like that, and just creating your own class in different ways, that is what really had me hooked in the beginning. Like, well, as far as Modern Warfare 2 is concerned. As far as the franchise is concerned, I wouldn't get quote unquote hooked until later on. But Modern Warfare 2 was the game that turned my head towards Call of Duty. It's like I didn't know about Call of Duty. I didn't know anything until Modern Warfare 2. And my first experience with the game overall was, okay, I understand what the big deal is, but I don't know what the hell I'm doing, and I have no idea how to get better. I simply just don't. I have absolutely no idea. However, I'm having fun with it, right? So that was basically my Modern Warfare 2 experience. Now, because I wasn't solely a Call of Duty player, I obviously spent a significant amount of time playing different games as well, because it would be a few years until Call of Duty would consume 90% of my gaming time, right, for the next decade or so. I was still playing a plethora of other games that had come out around that time. Like, for instance, Batman Arkham Asylum would come out at around that time, and I would absolutely be in love with that game. It came out in the same year, if I'm not mistaken. So, and then of course there were the other games that I was interested. What else was I playing? I was playing Need for Speed Most Wanted. I was playing Gears of War. And of course Halo. And I had actually a pretty decent chunk of games in my Xbox library, which was great to have, especially since during that time, even with my martial arts career and everything like that. I mean, it's, unfortunately the job didn't pay very well, so there wasn't too much money left over after all the bills and everything else. So Uh, but despite all that, it was still a great time. So Modern Warfare 2 is the COD that started everything for me. Like I knew what Call of Duty was now because of Modern Warfare 2. Now, the next game, right, Call of Duty Black Ops 1, was a game that I found out through IGN, GameSpot, because back then I had no idea about the YouTube community, right? I had absolutely no idea about the commentators, the content creators, the little bit of streaming that was going on as far as Call of Duty goes. I had absolutely no idea whatsoever. So I never really searched YouTube for Call of Duty at that time. Not yet, anyway. So I would look at reviews. I found out reviews from GameStop and IGN and stuff like that. So eventually I saw that they had the Call of Duty the Call of Duty Black Ops multiplayer information interview or whatnot. And I don't remember if it was Vonderhaar or not. I don't remember if it was Vaughn, but what ended up happening was, and thank you for the likes, by the way, stream. I don't remember if it was Vaughn that they were interviewing at that time, because remember, this was back in, I believe, 2010. So it was either Vaughn or somebody else, and he was taking questions, and they had the multiplayer footage, of course, playing in the background while all the questions were being asked and answered. And what ended up happening was, upon looking at that gameplay, it was instantly even more attractive to me than Modern Warfare 2 was. And I'll tell you why. Because, well, first of all, I was listening to the information that was being asked and that was being answered, which was also very appealing to me. And I'll get into that in a second. But Modern Warfare 2, but Black Ops 1 was more appealing to me as soon as I saw the gameplay as well, because I noticed that even though it was fast paced and it was arcadey and all these, and it was very rusher friendly and stuff like that, I noticed that it wasn't as chaotic as Modern Warfare 2, which was more appealing to me because they had designed the game in a way to where you could only go on gun streaks in order to earn your kill streaks. And then once you got them all and you haven't died yet, well, you had to die in order to get the next set and start over again. And of course, by only getting kills with your gun. This was Treyarch's attempt to balance the game, and it actually worked pretty well. And it wasn't so chaotic. I mean, sure, you can still get your streaks a ton and all that kind of stuff, but it was still quote unquote quieter, but not like campy, not boring. It was still a very run and gun friendly type of Call of Duty. And I believe that they mentioned that the maps were designed to be as such, so to speak, right? Not that you couldn't play defensively, not that you couldn't post or anything like that, but the maps had this overall design to them that basically allowed players to play a multitude of playstyles, which was something that was, again, very appealing to me, even back then as a casual that, in Black Ops 1, I ended up with a 1.1 KD, which was really good because in Modern Warfare 2, it wasn't anywhere near close to that. And I was still very much a casual. The only difference was that I knew how Call of Duty worked now. I knew that, I knew how to set up my classes. I mean, granted, I didn't know what the meta was, but I understood how to create a class worked because, again, with Halo, that didn't exist. So in Modern Warfare 2, it was foreign to me. I didn't know that you could create a class and customize and stuff like that. Actually, I never knew. I always picked one of the pre-made classes because I thought that's how the game worked, but that wasn't it at all. It was like I got in a party with him and he explained it to me. He's like, no, you can create your own class. And I was like, what? He's like, yeah, this is how you do it, blah, blah, blah. And once I saw that, I was like, wow. I was like, holy crap. And then it just opened the world to me. So from Black Ops 1, from the moment I played that game, I knew exactly what to do, right? But I was always a lightweight marathon guy. I was the player that always ran lightweight marathon. I had no idea about sound whoring. Hell, I didn't even have a headset. I would just use that little headpiece or whatever it was that allowed you to communicate with in party chat or something like that, or a game chat, right? But it wasn't a headset, right? All you could do is just hear the other people that you're talking to and vice versa, right? So it had nothing to do with the gameplay. So I wouldn't get a headset till later on. And as a matter of fact, my first headset wasn't even one that I bought. It was the old headset that my best friend had at the time. So basically, with Black Ops 1, when they revealed all the different information about that, it was very appealing to me. I like the fact that they had an extra 5 prestiges because I mean, who didn't love prestiging, right? So there was that, and then there was the whole currency system. again, at the time, the currency system and the emblem customization was actually ahead of its time. And it was very unique in terms of how you would get gold camo. You had to make it to Prestige 14, and you had to pay for your gold camo from the currency that you would get. Plus, they had the party games, right? Gun games, Sticks and Stones, One in the Chamber, and one more, Sharpshooter. There we go. So all those game modes and that kind of innovation was like a completely different take on what Modern Warfare 2 offered. And a lot of players loved it, and myself, I loved it too. And I was an assault rifle player in that game. I think most people were. So I was a fan of the M16, the G11, the Commando, the Galil. The Galil was my most used weapon, by the way, and the AUG. I would not use the FAMAS because I didn't know any better. I didn't know that the FAMAS was the broken gun in that game, right? And on top of that, I'm pretty sure that one of the reasons that I didn't was simply because of the fact that I did not. Yeah, absolutely, Drift. Great memories, yeah. And I didn't know about the FAMAS. So, and part of the reason was like when I first, again, I was very much a noob. When I tried to use the FAMAS, the recoil was all over the place. Now, granted, after all these years and experiencing Call of Duty and being able to control recoil a lot better now than it was back then, I would, pretty easy to use gun. It wasn't a hard to use gun at all. But back then, the recoil was pretty high, at least for me, So I never really got to use the FAMAS. I enjoyed the AUG though. The AUG was like a more balanced FAMAS, but I liked the AUG, but even then I wouldn't use it all that much. I was a Galil guy, and every so often I would switch to the Commando and the M16, the G11. The G11 I liked more than the M16 though. The only difference was you couldn't customize it like the M16. I think that's how they balanced that out, to where there were advantages and disadvantages to both. So, and when I played Black Ops 1, my best friend also told me about Domination. I never played Domination. I was always a team deathmatch free-for-all player. Still am to this day in pretty much any first-person shooter I touch. But my best friend told me about Domination, Black Ops 1. He's like, play Domination. I'm like, why? And he said, well, you get more XP from capturing flags. And if you want to prestige and level up faster, you got to play Domination. Plus, you get to play for longer, and the game doesn't end until you reach max score. So it's like there's no time limit. And I'm like, really? And he's like, yeah. So Domination became my main game for the most part in Call of Duty Black Ops 1. And there was no Call of Duty game like it, to be honest with you. There was no Call of Duty game like it. And I really I know that some people may have not liked Black Ops 1 and they preferred Modern Warfare 2 because of its pacing and its chaos and such. But Black Ops 1, man, was just so special because Black Ops 1 was like the first Call of Duty that made me want to play Call of Duty again, and my Black Ops 1 journey actually ends in kind of a sad note, so to speak. And that is that back during then I had the weekends off. So I come home on a weekend and it was a Nuketown 24/7 playlist on the weekend, right? Every so often on weekends, they would do that. And I was really hyped for it because Nuketown was brand new. And of course, being the super noob that I was, yeah, you're absolutely right about that, Drift. Black Ops 1 does hit different. Absolutely. 100%. The tone, everything, you name it. And so I go home on Black Ops 1 and I turn on my Xbox 360, I get into the match of Nuketown, I start playing, and then my game starts malfunctioning and I'm like, okay, I'm just going to remove the disc, blow on it a little bit or something like that, despite the fact that it was clean. I was going to do that, re-enter it, wham, bam, problem fixed. So I do that. I put the disc back in, start the game up, and then it starts malfunctioning again to the point to where it just crashes everything. And I look at the front of my Xbox 360 and lo and behold, the 3 red rings of death. And there was no money. So it's not like I could just get a replacement. What was I going to do? Turn it in and just wait for it to come back? It's like, no, I had to have something as soon as possible. So a friend of mine had another solution, and he basically suggested that I go to GameStop and turn in all my stuff for credits, all my games, all my console and stuff like that, and I would get enough credit to be able to get a new console. And yeah, it was a pain in the ass back then. Yeah, but it was the only time I had a 3 red rings of death, and it was the only time, and it was actually 4 years after getting that console. So my console actually lasted a while. For a second there, I actually thought I was going to be the lucky one without getting the 3 red rings, because during that time, it took me 4 years to get the 3 red rings of death, and my best friend, he had 3 Xbox 360s because he had gotten his more than once. So I was like, damn. So anyway, I go to GameStop and I turn in all my games, the old console, and all that kind of stuff. And it gave me enough credit in order to get a new console. However, I did not get another 360. Instead, I got a PS3. Now, why in the world would I get a PS3? Well, the answer to that is very simple. I was, again, like I said, at my core, I was still very much, a casual gamer. I didn't, well, I've always have been, but Call of Duty just hadn't taken that much of my time just yet, right? So, what ended up happening was I was a big God of War fan. I was very, very big into God of War. And God of War 1 and God of War 2 were absolutely epic games on the PS2. I enjoyed every bit of them, and they were always like a big part of my gaming life. And when God of War 3 came out, I saw how good it looked and stuff. But again, I didn't have a PS3, so I'm like, okay, this is my chance. So I end up getting a PS3. So upon getting the PS3, I immediately go for God of War. And that was the only game I could get at the time. So I just ended up spending that weekend grinding the living shit out of God of War 3. And it was a good time. It was a great time. And I didn't even think about getting a used copy of Black Ops 1. I don't know why I didn't think about it. I just didn't. I was just so all about God of War that I didn't care. I was just thinking about Kratos. I was thinking about, ending the story and discovering, what the ending would be after, the first 2 games. It'd be finally have the end of it. And then there was I mean, it was incredible, man. There's nothing quite like a God of War game. There's no other way to explain it. God of War was an absolute gem of a series, and it still is to this day. And I can't wait to see what Sony Santa Monica does with the next one now that Ragnarok is over. But going back on topic here, so after that, my Black Ops 1 journey was pretty much over. So what would happen next? Well, the next game to come out would be Modern Warfare 3, right? So, and again, mind you, very much a Call of Duty noob, very much didn't know what the hell I was doing. A casual, but I had now, thanks to Call of Duty Black Ops 1, I had now become a full-on fan of Call of Duty. So I would start searching the internet about multiplayer info for Modern Warfare 3. And I didn't find anything. I did find some interviews with Robert Bowling, and some people asked him some basic questions, and he did answer a few of those basic questions. But there were a lot of questions that he simply responded with, I can't say, because he wasn't allowed to yet. But I did find out eventually that they would have a Call of Duty XP event, which would basically reveal the entire multiplayer details, right? Like it was an event dedicated solely to revealing the details of Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3's multiplayer, right? So, and it made sense because Modern Warfare 3 followed Modern Warfare 2 and it followed Black Ops 1. And to this day, actually, I read this very recently. If memory serves correctly, according to what I read, Call of Duty Black Ops 1 to this day still holds the record in terms of most units sold, which is absolutely incredible. And not only is it the most units sold, but it's also the fact that Modern Warfare 3 was also a game that had high expectations for 2 reasons, because it followed Black Ops 1, which ended up being the most popular Call of Duty ever. And number 2, it was a sequel to Modern Warfare 2, right? And the miraculous thing about that game is, obviously we wouldn't find out about this until later on, is that entire game got developed in just 9 months. 9 months, man. Sledgehammer, whatever wasn't left of an Infinity Ward, and they had to call in Sledgehammer to help as well. I mean, like, whatever was left of those teams, I mean, they developed everything that we saw in Modern Warfare 3 in just 9 months. Which, when you look back at it, it's pretty damn impressive in terms of what we got in, just 9 months of development, which was like a year and 3 months less time back then. So props to them. Kind of makes me think what Modern Warfare 3 would have been like if they had like all the time to work on it. But anyway, so I end up catching the event. I don't remember if I caught it live or I caught a restream. I don't remember, but all I know is that from the very moment that they started discussing the multiplayer details up until the event was over, I was hyped like to the max, like absolutely hyped, because they announced Assault Support and Specialist. They announced different ways to progress with your guns and how your guns level up, the weapon proficiencies, the prestige system that you would get rewarded for prestiging now, uh, the different ways you could play. I mean, it was basically a balanced Modern Warfare 2. And the cool thing about Modern Warfare 3, whether you like that game or not, is that it actually innovated within itself. It didn't really look to try to steal anything from other games, really. It took a lot of the concepts that made Modern Warfare and Call of Duty so great in terms of the multiplayer, and it just grew upon those things. It's like, okay, how do we make this feature better? How do we make this better? And that's what they did with that. And in that aspect, Modern Warfare 3 absolutely succeeded, in my opinion. I know it was a game that got mixed opinions from the community, but with that being said, Modern Warfare 3 at the end of the day had like really good gunplay, and it had a lot of content. It was a complete game, and after a few patches, it ended up playing pretty smoothly for what it was. So, and of course, you had your 25 gun streak, which would end in a Moab or a nuke, but without ending the game this time. So basically, at the end of it, Modern Warfare 3 was like a balanced Modern Warfare 2, but with more features and more options. And honestly, one of the things that made Call of Duty as good as it is the fact that player had options, right? That's why a lot of people stopped playing Halo after a while and they went with COD, because Call of Duty gave the player a lot more options to do things that Halo just did not allow. But at the same time, Halo also became Halo because it had limitations. So, I like to say that Halo built its reputation from its limitations, and Call of Duty built its reputation for its options or lack of limitations or less limitations. So, which is awesome, which is great. There are some players that went back between the two, but for the most part, a lot of people just preferred one over the other. Thankfully for me, I've always enjoyed both. But Modern Warfare 3 was a really great time, because when I first, thank you for the likes, guys. You guys are awesome. Modern Warfare 3, I had another experience with Modern Warfare 3. Um, Thank you, Corny Puddle. Thank you. This is, yeah, I'm using old recorded XDefiant footage, and I figured, you know what? Instead of making a video, I might as well go live and just talk about my entire Call of Duty history. Why not? And at the same time, it gets you guys involved, and at the same time, it's a good time. So figured, why not? And at the same time, you also get to talk and say your own things while I'm live. Because what I personally love, one of my favorite things about doing content is you get to not only just talk to other people, but you get to share memories and experiences, because that's what gaming really is if you think about it. Like when you look back at the games that we had in the past, what do we have? We have our memories, right? We'll never forget the time when we went to those midnight releases. We'll never forget the first time we got our first Moab. We'll never forget the first time we, experienced whatever it is that we experienced, right? So the memories are what make everything what they are, right? So with Modern Warfare 3, let me tell you something interesting about Modern Warfare 3. So as I mentioned, I didn't have a 360 because I had a PS3, because I ended up having the three Red Rings of Death, right? So my best friend, as I mentioned, had 3 Xbox 360s, right? So I told him, I said, listen, I don't have a 360 to play on, and so on and so forth. And he's like, okay, listen. And oh, by the way, that PS3 ended up getting the yellow light like 6 or 8 months later or something like that after I got it. So so it's like, bummer. After a while, I just didn't have anything to play, and there was no money. So my best friend said this. He said, listen, I've got 3 of these. You can take one. Just give me $50. You can take one, and then we'll go to the midnight release. We'll pick up the game, and the rest is history. And I was like, wow, thank you so much. And I gave him $50. He gave me one of his 360s along with a controller, of course, and everything that I needed. And I would get an Xbox Live membership, of course. I forgot that, but thankfully he had one of those Xbox Live membership cards in there that had a code that he hadn't used. Thank goodness. And I ended up using that. And I put Modern Warfare 3 in, but I didn't remember what my old gamer tag was and all the info and stuff like that, so I created a new one. So what was that new gamer tag that I created? It's the one that you see on your screen right now, Justice Space X7. That was the gamer tag that I created back in Modern Warfare 3. And the X7 came from the fact that I was 27 years old at the time. So that is the gamer tag that I first created all those years ago, or the gamer tag that I would create all those years ago. So anyway, I I playfully talk a little bit of trash to him because back then he was always the better gamer than I was, you know, at these particular shooters and stuff like that. Right now he plays on PC, so now he's playing all sorts of different games and stuff like that on PC, and he's really, he likes battle royales a lot too. So anyway, I playfully talked trash to him and I said, "Yeah, let's 1v1 once you get home." And I remember at the midnight release, I saw everybody there. I saw kids that were up way past their bedtime. I saw middle schoolers, I saw high schoolers, I saw full grown ass parents, middle-aged people, college people. I saw everybody there. Like everybody was there at GameStop for the Modern Warfare 3 release at midnight. And some people had the Elite edition, which was like the $100 version of the game that came with Elite, which was like the ultimate stack tracker and shit. And some people had the console version of it, like the special console version of Modern Warfare 3 that would have like the really cool looking Xbox 360. Yeah, there's always that one friend. Personally, I love it. Give you energy boost and keep playing more. At least in my. Oh yeah. No, I was. To this day, I'm still very lucky. He's still my best friend to this day. I've known him for over 20 years now. And so yeah, if it wasn't for him, there would be a lot of gaming memories that I wouldn't have, specifically for the Xbox 360 era, because at least I wouldn't be able to get a 360 for quite a while if it wasn't for him, right? So there'd be a lot of games that I would miss out on if it wasn't for him. As a matter of fact, even beyond gaming, there would be a few experiences that I wouldn't have if it wasn't for him. So I have a lot of love for him, like for a multitude of reasons. But anyway, we got back to my place because it was his. Let's see. Corny Puddle says, "That's such a cool story. I gave my friend his first Xbox One, and he was so grateful that a few years later I had to sell mine for quick cash, and he let me borrow his backup until I got another one." Yeah, that's how you know you got a good friend, right? That's how you know you got a good friend right there. He never forgot you, and he kind of, you know, it's, you know, that's good karma, man. Good. That's an awesome story. I like hearing stuff like that. That's a good friend. That's how you know right there that you got a good one. So good for you, man. I'm glad it was able to kind of come back around like that. Love hearing stories like that. See, now this is why I do this stuff live. I should do more of these live. I'm telling you. Obviously, when XDefiant comes out, I'll be playing that. I'll be doing live streams on that. But anyway, we got home, and before I left, you know, because he was the driver's, before I got in my apartment, and you know, because he dropped me off, you know, I playfully talked trash to him, and I said, "Let's 1v1" when I set everything up, and he's like, "Okay." And we played a 1v1 on Terminal, and long story short, he beat me. I got frustrated, so he's like, "Yeah, we're not going to play 1v1s anymore because you're getting too frustrated." So I gave him a run for his money, but he still beat me. And I don't know if he was using SitRep Pro or not. I mean, I had no idea about sound whoring, didn't know what the hell sound whoring was. I was always a lightweight marathon guy in quick draw, you know, or extreme conditioning, lightweight quick draw. That was my thing. I used to have the mentality of, hey, if you can, you know, as long as you get on target faster and shoot the guy, you'll win that gunfight. And although to a certain extent that's true, it wasn't everything, right? Because it's a lot easier to win a gunfight even without quick draw if you know that somebody's around the corner, because you're able to sound whore them, right? Or if you understand how the spawn system works or whatnot. So in my case, I had no idea about the spawn system or about sound whoring, to be honest with you. So and then my Modern Warfare 3 adventure would begin, right? All the stuff that was mentioned at the Call of Duty XP event, I finally would get to experience for myself. Let's see. I don't have the Play My Xbox. Hey, Dax, I don't have the Play My Xbox no more because my best friend that I always played with got killed in a vehicle accident. I'm so sorry. I'm very sorry to hear about the loss of your friend, man. I'm sorry. Damn, that sucks. You know, man, I'm very sorry for the loss of your friend, man. Sucks. But damn. But when I started playing Modern Warfare 3 on my own, it was, again, I was still very much a casual, so I was like, okay, I'm also going to play the campaign, I'm also going to play Spec Ops Survival, I'm also, you know, I had no idea about the meta, I didn't know anything, but despite all that, I was still having fun, right? Because I was still leveling up, I was still upgrading my perks for Perk Pro, which thank God in Modern Warfare 3 you were not allowed. I mean, you didn't have to play different game modes in order to unlock pro perks, right? And if anybody remembers, Modern Warfare 3 SitRep Pro was the most overpowered perk at the time in Call of Duty history. You can hear people through buildings, if there was a mountain, and if they were on the other side of the mountain, you could hear their footsteps. Sitrep Pro was ridiculous, and again, I had no idea about it, none whatsoever. I didn't know what the hell sound whoring was. So um, so I would just naturally just play the game like I always played Call of Duty, and the results would still be the same. I wouldn't like I was a 0.7 KD player throughout that game's life cycle. But despite all that, I was still having fun. However, because I've been playing Call of Duty for like a few years now, like a couple years, because I started Modern Warfare 2, I was saying to myself, it's like, what do I need to do to get better? I had absolutely no idea. I didn't know about the YouTube scene. I didn't know about content creators. I didn't know about streams. I didn't know about, gameplay channels and all that. I was completely clueless. Anything that I saw was from what was it that I saw? I saw from, GameStop or I'm sorry, GameSpot or IGN or something like that. No clue whatsoever on how to get better. Didn't know where to start. I just accepted the fact that maybe just some people are better than me, and which is true. There's always going to be people that are better than you, but I kept on thinking to myself, it's like there must be something I'm doing wrong or something. I don't know. I literally did not know. And I started getting like I was enjoying the game, but it started becoming frustrating whenever I would perform bad, right? So that alone basically tells you that a change is starting to happen, because at first I didn't care, and then all of a sudden somewhere in the middle of Modern Warfare 3 I started to care, right? And again, this was not to the influence of YouTube or anything like that. Again, no clue whatsoever. So now when the year life cycle of Modern Warfare 3 ended, I would end up uh, changing professions. Actually, as a matter of fact, I went from teaching martial arts to basically just getting back into regular work. Obviously, it would pay better, thank goodness, but at the same time, it would come to at a big price, because I was working at a bridge painting company, and you would have to do like hard labor, right? Despite the fact that the pay was way better than it was in the martial arts business. Let me tell you, the hard labor, and plus there were hazards and shit like that, it really did a number on your body. And plus it was also a seasonal job, and you would also be gone from home. So the travel sucked, and then it was also up north, and I live in Florida, so going up north to Baltimore, Maryland was quite a different change of pace. It was still, even though we went there in April, even though we first got there in April, it was still cold as shit in the beginning of the day. So, and we had to be at the construction site at 7, which means you had to be up probably before 6, and then catch some breakfast, stop at the Wawa, and then you would go on the construction site, and you would be there anywhere from 10 to 12 hours at least, right? So and it was for 7 days a week. So all of a sudden, I would take some time off from work, but then once I got back into work doing that, it was like I was away from home. I was away from gaming. I mean, it would be serious. So whenever I would come home from leave and play games, it was like the ultimate treat. Now, before I would actually start that job, though, I had a lot of free time. So with that free time, I ended up discovering YouTube. Well, I knew YouTube, but I discovered the Call of Duty community on YouTube. It was around that time when I did, because it was around that time when Halo 4 and Call of Duty Black Ops 2 came out like within a week of each other. And again, I was a fan of both games, and I was certainly looking forward to both games. And before Black Ops 2 came out, I remember seeing like this little teaser trailer on YouTube about it. And then I started looking up stuff on YouTube about Call of Duty Black Ops 2. And that is how I actually found out about the commentators, the content creators, and all that stuff. It all started with Sandy Ravage, and then it went to Xcalzors, it went to Woody's Gamertag, it went to the Mark of J, Scump. The way I found out about Scump was from a Mark of J combat record video. He said, he basically showed us his friends list after he showed us his stats and shit, and Scump was on his friends list, and he basically said, yeah, Scump is the best player in Call of Duty right now. And I'm like, who's Scump? I never heard of him. And apparently he was a pro player. So that's how I got introduced to the pro scene, and that's how I figured out slowly but surely what that was all about. Black Ops 2 gave many good memories. I wish I could play it again. Yes, absolutely. Drift, I 100% agree. Black Ops 2 is my favorite Call of Duty to this day. And I myself had great memories. And the way it went was as follows. So, again, I had stopped my martial arts career, but I was on, like, I was taking time off before getting into the other profession, right? So I wouldn't make the midnight release. However, I would go first thing in the morning the next day, and I picked up the game, put it in, and played it. And the first map I remember, the first map I played on was Hijacked, and that's the one that I actually wanted to play on the most because I just really loved how the map looks. I love how Hijacked looked and everything like that, and I was like, wow, this is cool. And then I was really addicted to Kill Confirmed in that game because it was just so rewarding to pick up the tags. Domination, I really didn't play as much anymore. And again, free for all team deathmatch would still be a thing, but overall, Kill Confirm was like my main game mode because I just enjoyed, you know, the reward of picking up the tags, and plus, I always just enjoyed Kill Confirmed. Period. But now that you're getting like rewarded for it the way that you are, is like yes. So anyway, I would be a 0.8 KD player in Call of Duty Black Ops 2. Now, mind you, I'd also been watching YouTube. I had a lot of videos to watch because this would be my discovery of YouTube. So it was like there was a lot of Black Ops 1 footage for me to see. There was a lot of current footage for me to see. You know, the Call of Duty community back during Black Ops 2 was at its peak, right? It was at its absolute peak. And content creators that I would watch would be making videos every day. And then out of all the content creators, there was something that one of them said that would change me forever. Like it would change everything from the gameplay, right? He said, when you're in a team deathmatch, for instance, wherever your teammates are is where the enemy is not, or something along those lines. So basically, I looked at the mini map and I was like, okay, wait a minute. My teammates are over here. So that means that the enemy is likely to be like on the opposite end of wherever my teammates would be. So all of a sudden I would use the minimap as reference for that. And then once I saw that that was indeed the case, overnight my KD doubled. My KD doubled overnight because I was already playing Call of Duty for a couple of years now, right? So I understood a lot of the mechanics. There was a lot of things that I still didn't understand, but I didn't have it was like the first time I got some knowledge now because of the spawn system, which I thought was always random, right? So once I understood the spawn system, it was a game changer for me. Huge game changer. I'd know where enemies would come from, and gunfights would literally be happening in front of me. I would never get shot from the back. I would learn how to flank. I would play around with different classes and setups and stuff like that, and my KD would double overnight. Literally, I went from a 0.8 KD player to a 1.6 overnight. And then I started becoming obsessed with the game in a positive way, that I was constantly looking for ways to get better. Yes, it did. Just that little bit of knowledge made the big difference. All from a player in the name of Woody's gamer tag among all players. Go figure, right? So, and then that is when things changed. I started using different attachments for my weapons to experiment. I started using a lot more different weapons. I started using more different kill streak or score streak setups. And I would also compare the directions that I would go in compared to what like some of these other YouTubers are doing. And then it started making a big change. And then shortly after that, I had to start working. And then when I came back from work, whenever we were on leave for a short period of time, I would come home and play. And then one day when we were on leave, I just said, fuck it, I'm not going back to that work again. I'll just get back into the service industry and I'll be making the same amount of money, if not more, and shifts will be shorter. I won't be in any danger from the job. There's not going to be any hazards. I'm not risking my life. It's not nearly as taxing on my body. It's like, what do I've got to lose, right? So after that, I didn't go back to that line of work again, right? So, and it was a great treat because it's like I got to sleep on my own bed. I got to be at home. I didn't have to be away. You know how that works. So, and of course, I got to game, right? Because while I was gone, all I did was watch YouTube videos, right? So whenever Sandy or XCal, Woody's Gamer Tag, Scump, Mark and Jay, all these guys, whenever they made a new video, I would never miss it because that's all I did. Like once you got done with work, all you could do was just rest as best you can, eat and sleep, and I would watch YouTube. So that's what I did during my downtime at work, and I was working pretty much 7 days a week over there, except for if there was any point in time where I wasn't feeling well. I would just rest up and just stay in my room or whatnot. But even then, even if you weren't feeling well, you still worked. So, so finally to be home again after all this time of doing that for months, I was like, yeah, you know, I I appreciated the little things even more now, right? So, and this also gave me time to grind the game. And then it got to the point to where my performance in Call of Duty in terms of what what I was able to do gameplay wise got so much better that I started thinking to myself, I'm like, well, maybe I should create my own YouTube channel. Now, granted, it didn't happen right away. It happened somewhere around the Call of Duty Ghosts era, but I created a first YouTube channel, and then about a month later, I stopped. But I would continue recording footage, even though I stopped doing my first YouTube channel, and I ended up deleting it, you know? I would still record footage because recording footage was fun. And in the back of my mind, I said, you know what? You never know. We might pick this up again. You just never know. So, and at the same time, I was always a fan of YouTube, and I was always a fan of the YouTubers. So, and at the same time, I obviously didn't know what the hell I was doing, you know, in terms of creating content. My knowledge was very, very minuscule. There was no knowledge whatsoever. But eventually I just had enough of it, and then I was done with it, and then later on I would come back to it, but that's going a little too far ahead. So Call of Duty Ghosts. What do I think about Call of Duty Ghosts, which was the next one? I was expecting Call of Duty Ghosts to basically kind of pick up from where Black Ops 2 left off, but obviously that wasn't the case, right? That was not the case at all. Call of Duty Ghosts was just a different game. It certainly had its merits, like it had the cranked game mode. It had what's it called? Some of the maps in that game were really good, like Warhawk, for instance. Warhawk was an excellent map. Strike Zone was an excellent map. The weapons were good. The creative class system was unique. They nerfed specialists, which kind of was disappointing, but it is what it is. And then, of course, you had your assault support, but then they also backtracked and kind of went back to the point streak system instead of the score streak system, which a lot of players didn't like. Yeah, I mean, the thing is, Call of Duty Ghosts, I had mixed feelings about, but there was one thing, Corny Puddle, there was one thing, though, that really got me to grind Call of Duty Ghosts. So, Woody's Gamertag had an interview video with the man who won the Prestige Master Race. Remember the Prestige Master Race? Remember? Where the Call of Duty community would just, you know, upon getting the game, they would race the Master Prestige every year. You remember that? Well, Woody's Gamertag had an interview with the man that won. So I'm going to take a swig of my water here because I haven't taken a swig of my water since going live. So cheers to your guys' health. All right, so and that player was Pwn Stars. It was PwnStars.com, and I had never seen gameplay quite like that before. I'd never seen somebody who was so aggressive and yet so on target and being able to go on streaks like that. And then I went to his streams, which he used to do every day, and literally every game this guy would play, he would never have a bad game. He would always beast out. He would never have a bad game. And he was just so damn accurate and just so damn good at the game. I was like, I'd never seen anything quite like that in terms of pubs before. Not at that rate, not at that speed. You know, the accuracy was excellent. It was just, I'd never seen that before. So I look at this guy and I'm inspired by this guy and I'm like, I need to play like that. So, and if this guy can play Ghosts like this, you know, that means it could be done. So I started playing Ghosts like that. I attempted to play Ghosts like that, and I did get better, but here is what Call of Duty Ghosts taught me. Now, obviously, if you guys remember Black Ops 2, sound whoring was not a thing in Black Ops 2, right? Like, it was broken. You couldn't hear people's footsteps and stuff like that. I mean, at the same time, I didn't even know what sound whoring was, right? At the time. So when I enter Call of Duty Ghosts, I take the same type of method that I used for Black Ops 2. And long story short, it didn't work. And I didn't understand why I was getting killed from all these random places, how the hell they knew I was there, even though I wasn't too close to them. And I was a run and gunner, right? But I didn't know how in the hell I was dying left and right, and there was nothing I could do about it. Plus, the spawn system in Ghosts was not very good. So I didn't know what the hell to do. So anyway, I said to myself, I said, okay, listen, we're gonna go back to square one. It's like let's experiment with something real quick here. I said, let's throw on dead silence. So this would be the first time I ever used dead silence, right? So dead silence, I put that on, and all of a sudden, the amount of deaths I would get cut in half. I would only die half the amount of times, if not less, right? And then I was like, wow. I'm like, okay, I just put this perk on, and all of a sudden, I died way less. So I was like, okay. And then I took it a step further. I said, all right, let's run Amplify. And again, I had a headset because my best friend gave me his old one, right? So I run Dead Silence, I run Amplify, and let's just say from that point out, I never took those two perks off in any one of my classes, because not just because I would perform like I would normally perform back during the Black Ops 2 days when I started getting better and even better, but I realized, and plus I noticed that also some of the best players were using that, and I'm like, well, why not? So I mean, a perk doesn't really make the player; it helps them out, sure, but ultimately, I was running with it. I wasn't camping or anything like that. I was running and gunning. So my basic setup in terms of the perks were I was using Dead Silence, Amplify, Ready Up, Quick Draw, and Stalker. That was like my main. Those were the perks that I used mainly, right? And then the attachments were free. Weapons and attachments were free or whatnot. And I wouldn't use any lethals, any tacticals. Never really was a fan of lethals and tacticals. And after that, it was basically game on after that. I would and also I noticed that Pwn Stars was using Dead Silence and Amplify too. So I was like, shit, what do I got to be ashamed about? You can't really take that shit to heart when somebody talks shit to you online or whatnot for using a perk. It's like, dude, it's there. So like, what are you gonna bitch about? Everybody's gonna be using something, right? So it's a perk. It's in the game. It's meant to be used. But anyway, so anyway, I sadly needed to head to sleep. It's an AM for me. I need to do stuff tomorrow, but happy I stopped by before heading to sleep. Hey, thank you very much, Rapanda Drift. Appreciate it. It's in the AM for me as well, but my sleep schedule is messed up, so I figured I might as well go live and might as well talk. There's no need in wasting time. And to top it all off, I haven't posted a video for 2 days. So it's like, hey, might as well make up for it by going live. And I always wanted to do this one, so figured going live would make sense. But thank you very much for joining me, man. Get some sleep. And yeah, this will probably be in the live tab tomorrow. So I don't know if I'm going to release it in video form, but cut up in pieces, depending on, whichever Call of Duty I'm talking about. But yeah, I might do that. I might not. But again, there's always things to talk about here on the internet, especially when it comes to XDefiant and all that stuff. But yeah, man, get some sleep. Thank you very much for stopping by. Appreciate it. Anyway, so going back to what I was talking about previously, if I can remember. Yeah, it was like I enjoyed using Dead Silence and Amplify, and Pwn Stars watching his stream on a daily basis was one of the things that kept me playing Call of Duty Ghosts, because during Call of Duty Ghosts life cycle, I would go back and play, what would I play? I would play Black Ops 2 quite a bit, and Call of Duty Ghosts was also the last game that gave us a player count. So you saw that the player count in Call of Duty Ghosts, even during its life cycle, was not as high as Black Ops 2's. And then when you went back to play Black Ops 2's, Black Ops 2's was actually higher than Ghosts. So that said quite a lot. A lot of people preferred Black Ops 2 to Ghosts, which is understandable. But of course, there were a couple things that Ghosts did better, like the connection and the hit detection was better in Call of Duty Ghosts. So that's one of the things. Clan Wars, I guess, was another thing. I never, whenever Clan Wars would be up, I was always a solo player. So whenever Clan Wars was a thing, I always played free for all. So, because during the weekends when Clan Wars was up, I wanted no part of it. There would be nothing I'd be able to do, and it would be a miserable experience as a solo player playing Clan Wars against a full party of at least 6 people. So, but anyway, going back to that, this would be around the time when I would make my first YouTube channel, and it was, I think it had my gamer tag on there. That's all it was, basically named after my gamer tag, and then it would just be gameplays really without hardly any commentary. When I tried to record some footage, record commentary once, I noticed that I needed a mic. because the one on my $400 Walmart laptop just wouldn't suffice, obviously. So, but then ultimately it just kind of got boring, and wasn't getting any views. Plus, it was just gameplay with nothing else in it. Didn't know what the hell I was doing. Blah blah blah. I just got frustrated and quit. But I didn't stop recording footage. So when the next game, Advanced Warfare, came out, I would still continue to record footage. Now, when Advanced Warfare was announced at their reveal event, I was actually very, very hyped for that game because I was like, this is so catering to my playstyle. It's like if Ghost was a campy Call of Duty, it's like this is going to be like the big opposite of that, because of the exosuits and the way you can aim and shoot and how that worked. But there was a lot more to it than that, though. I remember watching a video from a content creator that I didn't watch very often, and that was Fisticuffs. And Fisticuffs basically said, listen, if you don't have a controller like a Scuff or something of that nature, you're going to be at a big disadvantage with Advanced Warfare. And lo and behold, he was right. But despite the fact that I wouldn't end up getting like an Xbox Elite controller up until Black Ops 3, but that's a little bit later on, obviously, in this conversation, I still enjoyed Advanced Warfare despite its flaws and despite the skill-based matchmaking and the supply drops, the weapon variants, and all that. I still enjoyed it because the core, the advanced movement of Advanced Warfare is actually what kept me playing that game, because it was, at that time, it was like the fastest paced Call of Duty. And the Call of Duty community really wanted something new at the time, right? They were crying for something new because we were getting too much of the same old boots on the ground stuff for years. And there's nothing wrong with that, but people wanted something new. So the developers were like, yeah, guess what? It just makes sense. We're gonna change, what's it called? We're gonna change the movement system, which absolutely positively made sense. So, and the advanced movement in Call of Duty Ghosts was absolutely incredible. The Call of Duty Ghosts advanced movement was, Advanced Warfare was, for me, really, really good because it allowed, what up, Logan Reigns? How are you? It absolutely allowed for another layer of gameplay and technique to be implemented. But again, unless you were either playing Claw or unless you had a special controller, you were just going to have a hard time utilizing it to its maximum potential. So it wouldn't be until sometime after that game's life cycle to where I would experience what that potential was. But despite all that, it was a game that a lot of people moved. I mean, sure, you're always going to have your campers and stuff, but a lot of people moved. At the same time, the Pick 13 system was unique, and they picked up a lot of things from the Treyarch titles more than they did the Infinity Ward titles, which I approved of. But despite all that, I mean, of course, you also had your weapon module. Your score streak modules that allowed you to customize your score streaks depending on your skill and all that. I was actually like really in love with Advanced Warfare because it was a game that literally, like, it was the most rusher friendly Call of Duty that I would ever experience. And again, just like my very beginning experience with Call of Duty, the cool thing was that I was, it was really a challenge for me to like utilize that sort of movement, despite the fact that I was certainly overdoing it. But I remember Marka J, when that video first, like when that game first came out and he was making his gameplays and stuff, he basically said, listen, what you guys need to do is slow down a little bit. He's like, doesn't mean that you should camp, and I'm paraphrasing here, but he basically suggested that players should slow down because they're just going way too fast. They're exoing so much that they're getting caught off guard or something like that. So I understood where he came from, but I just never wanted to slow down. But I really liked the maps in that game. I love the pacing. The maps were good. The weapon balance was way off. I mean, there was only like 2 or 3 guns you could use. There was one sniper. There was the BAL, the HBR, and then that was it, basically. The Insanity, the Steed, the Obsidian Steed, the Insanity, and maybe a sniper here and there, and then maybe a shotgun, but the shotguns were very good in that game. But that was pretty much it, man. So that's why they nicknamed it Bal of Duty, because everybody was using the BAL. and rightfully so because it was good. But yeah, the weapon variants would kind of make a difference. But again, with the supply drop system, they would later on make it to where you would get the best variants depending on which level prestige you were at. But that it would be a while until they did that. And to top it all off, a lot of people just weren't a fan of the supply drop system, and I can't blame them. And I like the maps. Fun fact: Doctor Disrespect himself actually designed one of the maps, or a couple of the maps, and one of those maps I believe was Solar, and it was one of the best maps in the game, in my opinion. So that was a really good map, and just the gameplay overall was really good. But but again, a lot of people just didn't like Advanced Warfare. I think skill-based matchmaking was another thing that took a lot of the fun out of Advanced Warfare as well, because people were talking about it left and right. But I think after the game's cycle, the skill-based matchmaking was either dropped or let go or whatever it was. So I don't know. But Advanced Warfare was the most ballsy Call of Duty at the time because it was made by Sledgehammer, which was their first Call of Duty game that they ever made. And to top it all off, they also innovated in a few ways. Obviously, they were the first to do advanced movement, and they're innovate. It's like they truly went for it, man. One thing you can say about Sledgehammer back then was they really, really went for it, and they tried. And in a lot of ways, they succeeded, but in a lot of ways, they failed because after about a month or two, the fans decided that, hey, we don't like this form of advanced movement, right? So later on in Call of Duty Black Ops 3, when Treyarch presented their game, it was one of the things that they said in interviews was, this is not an exosuit. This is not an exosuit. This is not an exosuit. And then content creators that were able to get their hands on the game ahead of time were like, yeah, these are definitely not exosuits. And I remember to this day how Black Ops 3 was revealed. When Black Ops 3 was revealed, I remember it was at E3 of 2015 during the PlayStation Showcase. And with the PlayStation Showcase, David Vonderhaar went up on stage after the campaign was showed off. And he said, and I'm paraphrasing, he said something along the lines of, it's an honor to be here on the main stage and to represent the hardworking men and women of Treyarch and to introduce, for the first time ever, Black Ops 3's multiplayer. And then after that, we got the multiplayer trailer, right, of Black Ops 3. And then we also got an announcement that there would be a beta. Like, the beta itself was such a huge moment. Huge moment for Black Ops, or I'm sorry, from Call of Duty, Call of Duty in general, because we had never had a beta before. And let's face it, Black Ops 2 really hit home with fans. Black Ops 1 was great, so people were anticipated Black Ops 3 like it was crazy. Black Ops 3 was hugely anticipated. And it was a very vibrant looking game. And of course, we got an introduction to the specialists. But the specialists themselves were not exactly, how do we call this? They weren't overdone like they were in Black Ops 4, right? Or even in Infinite Warfare. They actually made specialists work really, really well in the game. You got to choose one of two variations of them with their different abilities and stuff like that. So you would actually, you actually got to pick and choose. So for me personally, as far as the specialist goes, they weren't as annoying as they were in Black Ops 4, or even in Infinite Warfare for that matter. But for the most part, Black Ops 4. So when I remember when I first got my hands on the special on the game in what was it in the beta, I thought the game was really good. The only thing that I thought sucked, and I hoped that they would fix it, but they never did. The thing that sucked about about Modern Warfare 3 for me was the stock attachment for assault rifles. Now, I would still use it because it still made a difference, but the stock attachment was like nerfed so much in Black Ops 3 that it was, for me personally, it was a heartbreaker. Because through Black Ops 2, I was so used to the strafe speed of stock and everything. So eventually, even though I still used assault rifles in that game, I would mainly be an SMG guy during the Black Ops 3 life cycle. I would use the VMP, I would use the Kuda, I would use obviously I would use more and more submachine guns as time went on, as I got used to them, but mainly I was a VMP Kuda guy. When I got which I actually happened to be live when this happened after the game came out, I was on live stream and it was a miracle that I was able to live stream because I had a freaking cheap laptop and an Elgato that wasn't going to work, and there was no Streamlabs, no OBS or whatnot. I didn't know what the hell I was doing. So anyway, um, it was a miracle that I was able to live stream and play, and I did, and I ended up one of the days getting the 70 kill team deathmatch game during a live stream, and Difo just happened to be there as well. I think he was still called Dying Food at the time, but he was there as well, and it was like such a big accomplishment. It's like finally, but yeah, with Black Ops 3, man, I really loved the maps in that game. The colors of the entire game was excellent. The game was very vibrant. The specialists weren't, even though they were annoying at times, they weren't as annoying as I thought they would be. The spawn system was good. The streaks were actually really good. And it was, in my opinion, a worthy sequel of Call of Duty Black Ops 2. Black Ops 2 was a worthy sequel. However, was it as good as Black Ops 2? That's a tough one to answer, but if I had to answer it, I would say no. I would say no. It wasn't as good as Black Ops 2, but it was damn fucking close. It was very close. Black Ops 3 was so good that, like, I remember even Crimsix in one of his streams in corny, yeah, it's, I mean, you can't deny the beauty of Black Ops 3, man. I mean, and the thing is, you can't catch lightning in a bottle twice, especially with Call of Duty, but Black Ops 3 nearly did it. And Black Ops, that's just goes to show you how good Black Ops 2 was. But I remember Crimsix in one of his live streams back in the day, he said, like, if Call of Duty Black Ops 3 had no advanced movement, that it might have been the best Call of Duty that was ever made. And that made me think a little bit. I was like, maybe it would have been a step closer to being better. Maybe from a competitive side, maybe, but I don't know. I rather like the advanced movement, but at the same time, I don't think the advanced movement made Black Ops 3 as good as it was, because you could still play a boots on the ground Call of Duty in Black Ops 3 and still do well. That's why a lot of people liked it, because it just gave people the option, right? So, I don't know, because when you look at the maps in Black Ops 3, I mean, Combine is better than Nuketown, in my opinion. No disrespect to Nuketown, but Combine is a better small map than Nuketown is. I love Combine. Combine is one of the best design maps in COD history. And as far as small maps go, it's one of the best design maps in COD history, in my opinion. Let's see. Fringe. Fringe was an awesome map, both competitively and in pubs. Strongholds, awesome map. Evac, awesome map. I mean, come on. There were, I mean, what was the other one? Starts with an I think. Instinct or something? No, not Instinct. Infection. I don't remember that other one, but man, like, so many good freaking maps, man. Nuketown is great, but it really has a nostalgia power up. Yeah. I mean, I enjoyed Nuketown a lot in Black Ops 1, and it was the first one. And then we have Black Ops 2, which was kind of like a repeat. And then Black Ops 3's Nuketown was kind of a hit or miss for me. But actually, as funny as it sounds, I actually like Black Ops 4's Nuketown, believe it or not. I don't know if it has anything to do with the snow, but I personally think it was just the pacing of the game and the subtle changes, probably. But it's safe to say, like, Nuketown, is nostalgic as it is, it's kind of getting repetitive, obviously. But honestly, I'm surprised they never brought back Combine, really. I mean, here's the thing about Black Ops 3's maps, is that any one of those maps that were in that game, the good ones especially, and most of the maps were good in that game, let's just be real here. Any one of those maps can be brought back in a boots on the ground Call of Duty and play very well. That's another reason why Black Ops 3 was so damn good, is like, you can take the best maps in that game, which was most of those maps, and then after that, like, you could put them in a boots on the ground scenario, and you're done, and you're absolutely, there's no way that those maps won't play well. I mean, and not only that, they also brought back the old maps, right? The old maps of, like, firing range or whatnot. They even gave it a night mode, And I mean, seriously, it's absolutely incredible. It's absolutely incredible because you can't, you can't, it's really hard to deny a really good map that can be played on any single Call of Duty. Like, in any Call of Duty that you've ever played, right? Like, some maps are just so good that they can be playable in any Call of Duty, whether it's advanced movement, whether it's in the past, whether it's in the present, whatever. Like, look at this game here, XDefiant, right? Okay. Let's say under some miracle that, Bobby Kotick and Activision basically said, yeah, we'll let you borrow one of our maps. If you brought firing range, right, which is one of the best maps in COD history, right? If you brought firing range in XDefiant, I guarantee you that firing range will play very well in XDefiant. Like, very well. There's no doubt in my mind. If you brought back raid, if you brought back standoff, you brought back firing range, right? Among a few of the maps said, there's no way that those maps will play very well. If you brought back fringe, if you brought back strongholds, they would play very well in XDefiant. Just, I mean, there's even a few Halo maps that would be really great for XDefiant and in Call of Duty, believe it or not. There's a reason why maps in certain games are as legendary as they are. And what made Black Ops 3 so legendary, one of the factors that made Black Ops 3 so legendary for me personally is that the maps were just that damn good, in my opinion. Like, I was, and the thing is, at first, it took me a little while to warm up to them, but once I did, I'm like, bro, these maps are legit good, man. And the beta was just such a treat to play, and it was such a huge deal for Treyarch and for Vaughn. I remember Vaughn got on stream and played a few games as the beta was ending. And people were so excited about the release of the game that it would be nuts. And Black Ops 3 absolutely positively just hit everything the right way. It just so happened that it didn't quite reach the success in terms of, of what Black Ops 2 managed to capture, because Black Ops 2 just brought so much new stuff into the mix. And what Black Ops 3 did was it built off of what Black Ops 2 did. So, that is what made those games different, right? Because Black Ops 2 was just a little bit more original, and Black Ops 3 basically built off of that originality. But with that being said, Black Ops 3 was so brilliant that it literally almost recaptured the beauty of Black Ops 2, which is a damn difficult thing to do, especially since there was a different director in that game. There was a different director of Black Ops 3. The guy that made Black Ops 3 was not the same guy that made Black Ops 1 and 2 in terms of the multiplayer. So that's hard. That is very hard to do. So, and to replicate success like that deserves a round of applause for Black Ops 3, man. So, the next game, however, was Infinite Warfare. And I will say this, and I'm going to say it now. Infinite Warfare is the most underrated and underappreciated and most hated Call of Duty of all time, and it doesn't deserve it. In my opinion, aside from maybe Modern Warfare 3, Infinite Warfare is actually the best Call of Duty multiplayer experience that Infinity Ward has created. Because Modern Warfare 2019, do not like. Modern Warfare 2022, don't need to have it in order to see what's wrong with it. And Modern Warfare 3 was good, but I don't know. That's really hard to compare the two, But Infinity Ward proved, okay, for the first time ever after Black Ops 3, that they can do what that they can do what Treyarch does, right? Because when you look at the maps, right? I mean, they had a space theme coat of paint, right? But when you look at how well they played, when you look at the fact that the spawn system was actually good and the spawn system actually made sense for the first time in an Infinity Ward title, the specialists themselves, the fact that the maps were not washed this time in terms of the color, the color palette was great. They implemented the pick 10 system. The weapons were good, and they actually gave us weapon variants that you can actually grind. And actually, the weapon variants were actually very interesting. I mean, I know they weren't just cosmetic, but they impacted gameplay. But they impacted gameplay in a way that was actually very unique. It didn't repeat the mistakes that Advanced Warfare did. The weapon variants in Infinite Warfare were actually brilliant. You had one that, and also one other thing, the camos for that game were absolutely beautiful. The camos were gorgeous in that game, and there was a lot to grind for. There were factions to grind for. There was prestige levels. They added on extra prestige levels. They added on extra game modes. Infinity Ward was like being so community friendly, despite the fact that people were shitting on their game, and a lot of people didn't play their game, which sucks. But Infinite Warfare was like Black Ops 3, version 2 or version B. It was an alternate version of Black Ops 3 in a hyper futuristic space themed type of Call of Duty that had the same advanced movement but slightly smoother and slightly faster, with vibrant colors, 3-lane maps. The score streaks obviously weren't as good. I mean, the Warden was pretty good, and maybe one or two other streaks, but in terms of like the big streaks and all that kind of stuff, there really wasn't anything that was memorable, sadly. So Black Ops 3 had Infinite Warfare definitely beat in that aspect. And of course, Black Ops 3 was the first to do what it did. So Infinity Ward just basically did a lot of copy and pasting. But with that being said, that's not a bad thing, because it provided the differences that it provided compared to what Black Ops 3 did was something that I personally welcomed, because like you could actually, like, unlike Black Ops 3, for instance, you can actually craft the best weapons in the game. Like you could grind for them and craft them. And you could. All you had to do was just play the game. Really. So it wasn't just, a copy and paste supply drop, but you can craft the weapons. And there was no skill-based matchmaking. I mean, of course, there was a hidden MMR system that would balance the teams out, but again, there was no skill-based matchmaking. Hell, they even brought back a couple of legendary Infinity Ward maps, like Terminal, for instance. I actually like, what's it called? Out of all the versions of Terminal that we've gotten, I actually like Infinite Warfare's version of Terminal the best. It actually plays very, very well in Infinite Warfare, and it's like a space theme. It was almost like, it kind of looked like a night version of, what's it called? Of Terminal. So I thought it was great. The maps were really good. I mean, of course, they had a space and planet theme and shit, but the maps were good. I don't know what people are complaining about. The weapons were good. You had a shit ton of assault rifles and of varying kinds to use, shit ton of SMGs and varying kinds to use. You had shotguns. You had so many different combinations. And then you had a weapon variant that would have like, that would have, what's it called? Like, it would fire from the hip very accurately, and it also stacked with, the laser sight if you wanted to double time it like that. Light machine guns were really good in that game as well. So, what's it called? Strike Zone, the Genesis, the version of Strike Zone in that map was really good. They even brought back the cranked game mode. They brought back the 25 gun streak, which Treyarch didn't ever want to do. So they brought that back. So, Infinite Warfare is too fucking hated, man. Too hated, very underrated, and at the same time, the developers themselves were so community friendly. Like, they were trying to get people to play that game, even though they left that game early on because of the hate train. Now, I at first didn't like Infinite Warfare. I didn't give it a fair shot because the hate just influenced me too much. And then when I went back to play it after I got tired of the same old routine of playing the same old CODs and all that other shit, I said, you know what? I'm going to give Infinite Warfare my fair shot. I'm going to give it my all. I'm going to give it everything I've got, right? I'm going to spend time in the game. I'm going to grind the game. I'm going to learn the game. And I'm going to give it everything I got because I want to give it my legit try and judgment, because I don't want to hate the game just for the sake of hating the game. And I'm watching other content creators play it, and I'm watching them, pull the content that they do and play the way they do. And I'm looking at myself and I'm like, this legitimately looks fun. Why? I actually want to play this game. So it's like, why am I hating on it? So eventually I got on and played it, and it felt fresh, which was very good. And then eventually what ended up happening was I learned the game just like I did every other Call of Duty. And once I understood it, I started playing extremely well, which amplified my fun even more. and I understood the differences between Infinite Warfare and what Black Ops 3 provided. And even though they are very similar among one another, Infinite Warfare and Black Ops 3 do not play 100% the same. They don't. Because when you look at, the way the time to kill works in Infinite Warfare compared to Black Ops 3, the time to kill in Infinite Warfare is faster. And the hit detection in Infinite Warfare is pretty good too, at least with my experience. I mean, there were a few inconsistencies, but for the most part, it was good. The only thing that I would have to complain is the synaptic specialist or whatnot. The hitboxes were different on that. And that's something that they never fixed, unfortunately, which is why so many players use synaptic as well. I wish that wasn't the case, but unfortunately it was. But when you look at in terms of how you would use the advanced movement, the map design, it was literally like slightly faster paced than Black Ops 3. It was, but it was still Black Ops 3, so it was yet familiar. And I will always defend Infinite Warfare. I hated on it at first, and I even made a couple videos apologizing that I did because it was premature. I joined the hate train, so to speak, and it wasn't right because the game didn't deserve the hate. It really didn't. And I give the devs the props because Infinity Ward for the first time proved to us that they can make spawns that work. They can make the game look good, and you can actually see your enemies, give vibrant colors and stuff like that. They were open to implementing the things that made Treyarch games successful into their own games. And in terms of crafting weapons and stuff like that, it was genius. And the weapon variants that you would get, it was genius. Seriously. Legitimately genius. As basic as it is, it was legitimately genius. So that is one of the main things. Oh, also Infinite Warfare from a content creation standpoint, as well as streaming on Twitch when I streamed at Twitch at the time. Let me tell you, Infinite Warfare is the game that made me go Twitch affiliate. Like, Infinite Warfare was also the game where I had the most people in chat at any point in time. Black Ops 4 also gave me a pretty good, what's it called? A good amount of viewers. But Infinite Warfare is what got me to affiliate on Twitch. There was one point in time where I had whenever I didn't get rated, there was one point in time where by myself, I was able to get like 20 viewers or something like that. And this was years ago. So, and it was great. We were getting followers every day. It was awesome. And playing the game was just a whole lot of fun. I played with people as well. Some people asked if they could play with me. Usually I just played by myself, but I would play with people as well. It was just a damn good fucking time, man. Classic Call of Duty in the form of Infinite Warfare, which just so happened to be the most hated COD that treated me the best. And at that time, there was no other Call of Duty from a content creation standpoint, as well as a streaming standpoint. No other Call of Duty had treated me quite like Infinite Warfare did. And it was a blast to play. It was because once you got used to Infinite Warfare and how that game worked, and if you knew what you were doing, oh man, it was a blast getting on and playing. So for me, at the end of the day, whenever I talk about Infinite Warfare, I have nothing but good things to say. And I don't care how hated the game is. Hell, even the campaign was good. I didn't play the entirety of the campaign, but whatever of it I did play, holy crap. I thought it was good. I like the fact that the robot, the Synaptic, had a unique personality and a sense of humor. I thought that was badass. So, dude. And of course, they implemented zombies, right? But a little bit more lighthearted than what Treyarch did. It was an alternate zombies, and a lot of people liked it. And some people were surprised, and they were saying, wow, I actually had fun with this zombies. Holy hell. So, if anything, I would say that Infinity Ward was damn near showing off in that game, despite the fact that they were super humble about it. In my opinion, it's like they were showing off, because it's yeah, we can do what Treyarch does. Here you go, Infinite Warfare. So, but yeah, nothing but good things to say about Infinite Warfare for the most part. So anyway, and funny fact, Optic Gaming would win, Scump would win his, Optic Gaming would win their first Call of Duty championship in Infinite Warfare. Go figure. Need I say more? Anyway, moving on to the next Call of Duty. What would come out after Infinite Warfare? We had Call of Duty World War II. Now, Call of Duty World War II, way before it came out, people were praising the game already simply because of the fact that it's going back to boots on the ground. We had 3 years, right? We had 3 years of full-on advanced movement, jetpack era, in the form of Black Ops 3, Infinite Warfare, and Advanced Warfare, and people were ready to go back to boots on the ground. That's one of the reasons why Infinite Warfare was hated so much, because people were ready to go back to boots and it just didn't happen yet. So anyway, so ultimately, when before World War II came out, people were so excited about it because it's like, yes, here we go. And I will say this though, I'm sorry, not Infinite Warfare. Call of Duty World War II had the potential to be uh, the best Call of Duty since Black Ops 2. And in my opinion, obviously it didn't succeed. However, it did have a few gems. Now, obviously, we all know about the overhaul that happened 6 months later, which was the best thing to happen to that game, honestly, especially after Schofield and Condrey left. But I want to talk about the improvements that Sledgehammer Games made in World War II from Advanced Warfare. Because in Advanced Warfare, one of the weaknesses of that game was the fact that, number one, there were weapon variants that were not cosmetic only. So, and on top of that, the weapon balance itself was way off, right? And then in World War II, guess what? The weapon balance is so much better. Like, you could use a multitude of SMGs, a multitude of assault rifles, a multitude of whatever gun, and you could still be viable. Like, to this day, I mean, granted, it's risky playing any Call of Duty now, but like, I remember the last time playing it months ago, you could choose any weapon you wanted. And I would see so many different weapons on there. I wouldn't just see PPSHs and bars. I would see like a little bit of everything. So let's see. Corny Puddle says, I love World War II. It was the first time I prestiged in a COD game online. Yeah. World War II, especially after that overhaul, was a gem. For me, I was frustrated with it, and I would leave the game during its life cycle, but I would come back later. Not just after the overhaul, but I also figured out something else. Because even though the spawn system was solid in World War II, there was something that the game did that I didn't like. It was infamous for literally spawning people behind me after I just checked that area, right? I got frustrated of that. So I basically ended up using a basic training, or a perk, so to speak, right? That was, it was called Instincts. So whenever somebody was looking at me at any point in the map, I would be able to tell, and I would be able to rush my way around any trouble because I was aware of my surroundings. And to top it off, it was a little bit different because, again, I would rush. But the thing is, the map design in that game, even though there were 3-lane maps, they were slightly bigger than what they should have been, number one. And they also had like lanes within lanes that would allow people to play very passively. And there were a few safe spaces in a few of those maps. So for me to counter that, I had to use the Instincts basic training. But once I used the Instincts basic training, it was business as usual. I was winning 95% of my free-for-all matches. I was, the number one guy in team deathmatch. I would be the difference maker in a game, whether it was win or loss. And some of those maps in World War II, or some of the best maps in Call of Duty ever, like London Docks, in my opinion, is the best map in the game. And it was good pubs wise, it was good competitive wise. Like, London Docks is an absolute gem of a map. In my opinion, it's up there with Raid, it's up there with Standoff, it's up there with Firing Range. London Docks was excellent. I even like Sandbox. I think Sandbox came in after as free DLC. Sandbox was really good. So what other? There was another map specifically that I liked. Ardennes Forest was also pretty good. I enjoyed Ardennes Forest a lot in Call of Duty World War II. So a lot of potential in Call of Duty World War II, but unfortunately, it didn't meet the standard of some of the other legendary Call of Duty games because there was something else as well, and that was the fact that the streaks were a little bit, well, not a little bit, that'd be too friendly, but the streaks themselves were underwhelming. Right? The streaks overall were very underwhelming because, well, first of all, I don't see why they didn't bring back the score streak modules to customize those streaks in Call of Duty from Call of Duty Advanced Warfare. I don't know why they didn't bring that back, which in my opinion was a missed opportunity because in World War II, the streaks were kind of lacking. Some of them were good, but a lot of them, especially the higher tier ones, were not very good at all. And they could have used a buff in some way, shape, or form, right? They could have used a buff, and it just didn't happen, unfortunately. And as you know, when it comes to the pillars of what make a great Call of Duty, there's what is it? There's the weapons, there's the maps, and then there's the streaks. Those are like the main pillars of Call of Duty, or some of the main pillars of Call of Duty. I would say those are the main three. And you got to have good maps, you got to have good weapons, and of course you have to have good streaks. So with maps, it was hit or miss in my opinion, and especially since we didn't get many of them. Um, it was very hit or miss, and then the streaks, unfortunately, were a miss, but the weapons were a hit. Like the weapons in that game were good. And even the ones that we got afterwards, DLC or whatnot and stuff like that, those weapons were good, man. And we had PPSH variants and stuff like that, but they were cosmetic only, so the iron sights would look different. So that was really cool. So you could use, if you didn't like the a certain version of a weapon, it's like, hey, use the variant and you might like it because the iron sights are different, which make it easier for you to aim or whatever it was, right? So I personally loved that. And the fact that we had so many of them for all of the different weapon classes was excellent. There was a ton of snipers, there was a ton of SMGs, ARs, all that. Like to this day, and plus they added into level 1000, right? You can grind to level 1000. Oh, and one more thing, there was also the headquarters. The headquarters had its firing range. It had a little pit where you could play one-on-one, best of three, or whoever would get three first. I mean, seriously, like it was just absolutely like that was another gem about World War II. The headquarters was great. Another really good concept of Sledgehammer Games that deserves a comeback in some future form of Call of Duty. Those guys, I mean, a lot of people give Sledgehammer shit. Well, I mean, in Vanguard it was rightfully so, but in terms of everything previously, uh, uh, there's a lot of genius in terms of what Sledgehammer did back in Advanced Warfare and even in World War II. So as much as they showed that they were, as much as they were like incapable of following through in some aspects, in other aspects they were like genius, like legit genius. In terms of what we saw in World War II and then the few things we saw in Advanced Warfare, I'll give credit. But obviously with Vanguard, it's like it's obviously not the same Sledgehammer Games, in my opinion. That's why Sledgehammer Games is getting so much crap, is because in Call of Duty Vanguard, it was a WTF game, so to speak. So anyway, um, so yeah, Call of Duty World War II was a game that I at first did not like at all, or like let me just say not very much, and it pissed me off because I saw the amazing um, potential that the game had, um, and then obviously with the overhaul I reached that potential, and then after that, I used instincts and that made a big difference for me. But it's still like, for me, I would have loved, instead of one basic training, I would have loved two instead of just one. That was my personal thing. But overall, they made a unique created class system. I understand that they wouldn't want to copy and paste pick 10 because they kind of did that with pick 13. So it was very apparent that they needed to make a what's it called, a weapon class, or excuse me, a class system for themselves, and I get that. But ultimately, for me, I was overall, World War II was a mixed bag for me, but I ended up liking it more after the overhaul. Didn't like it very much, and then I liked it a lot more after the overhaul. So once the overhaul was complete, and then I gave the game a little bit more time, I was able to basically change everything after that. Didn't have as much fun with it as it did in Black Ops 2, of course, but World War II was solid after the overhaul. Didn't reach its full potential in my opinion, but it was the game, in my opinion, that had like the most potential out of any recent Call of Duty game at that time. And Sledgehammer Games could have really nailed it out of the park, but at the same time, it's, you got to give credit where it's due. The overhaul really changed the game a lot for the better. And at the same time, from what I've seen, Condrey and Schofield, mainly Condrey, I think, is the one who kind of held that game back. But at the same time, you never know. He might have, I don't know. Maybe Activision held him back. You just never know. But yeah, Call of Duty World War II was a mixed bag that I ended up loving at the end and not liking so much in the beginning. And okay, so what came out after Call of Duty World War II? What came out? Oh, yes, of course. Black Ops 4. I need a drink, so I'm going to take another swig of my water. So, cheers to your health. All right, and we've been talking for nice 100 minutes. I love it. We're going to keep going, but I'm going to take a swig of this water. All right, now, Black Ops 4. So before the game came out, before Black Ops 4 came out, we were told through other content creators and inside sources and stuff like that, it was revealed to us that it was revealed to us that basically Black Ops 4 was going to be completely different than what we got, right? So everybody that got called in to play that game early basically said, what the hell is this? So it was going to be kind of like a hero shooter or something like that, which is one of the reasons why we got the specialist the way we did, and what was one of the reasons why we got the EKIA the way we did. So I guess Treyarch got a little too ambitious and went too far off base from what Call of Duty was, to where players were like, what the hell's going on? And then Treyarch was basically forced to kind of backpedal. And to top it all off, we would also have a battle royale in the form of Blackout, which was made in about a year, if not less than that. So basically, in other words, the amount of time it took to make Modern Warfare 3 as a whole back in the day was, it took slightly more time to make Blackout. Overarch, you mean like Overwatch? Yeah, it was going to be similar to Overwatch. Yeah, that's what I heard too. So if you're a Call of Duty fan, that's not good news. But thankfully, though, Treyarch was able to backpedal, and thank goodness it ended up being a solid Call of Duty game. But I can't fully explain it. But Black Ops 4 just felt so different. Like, I don't know, it's just something very different about that game. It didn't, I don't want to say that it didn't feel like a Call of Duty, but it was just significantly different. I don't know what it was about Black Ops 4 that just felt so different. Did I play it a lot? Yes. And as usual, I always, just like with every Call of Duty, in the beginning I struggle. Just like even with XDefiant, like when I played the closed beta, I struggled immensely. I mean, granted, there was a connection issues and stuff like that, but I struggled with the game immensely. And then during the open beta, it was a much more pleasant experience, and I was able to play even better and get used to the game even more. But ultimately, at the beginning of every game, I struggle, no matter how experienced I am with the game. When the new sequel comes out, I struggle. It's just the way it is. But I can't put my hand around it. But Black Ops 4 was just so different, and I can't really put words to like what I'm trying to say in terms of like why it's different, what's so different about it, and all that stuff. I don't fully get it. I don't fully understand it. But thankfully, though, a solid Call of Duty, a very solid Call of Duty, and a lot of people really liked it. It was actually one of the more competitive Call of Duties because of the time to kill. But in my opinion, Black Ops 4 also had a lot of cheese in terms of some of the DLC weapons and stuff. And because it was Treyarch, and because Activision knows that Treyarch games are going to sell and be popular, they limited the weapons to supply drops only, at least until after its life cycle. At least not until after its life cycle, but you could only get the DLC weapons through supply drops, so you had to be lucky and all that other shit. So, and they would bring back a lot of the older maps that we've experienced before. I felt the same way when I played it. I could never put my finger on it. Yeah, I can't put my finger around it either. And I played Call of Duty Black Ops 4 a lot. I played a lot of Black Ops 4. As a matter of fact, Black Ops 4 was responsible for getting me to 1,000 subs. I had gotten a lot of traction with Black Ops 4, and at the same time, it was also during the time when I actually first quit YouTube. I during the Black Ops life cycle, the Black Ops 4 life cycle, around the second half of the life cycle, I thought I was done with YouTube, really. And I would never come back. I mean, it was after those 6 years that I stopped doing Call of Duty content consistently, because even though there were good things about Black Ops 4, there were other things that I saw, and I read between the lines, and I saw that the direction where Call of Duty was headed. Because I noticed with Black Ops 4 that there were certain things that I just didn't agree with from a design standpoint, as well as the direction that they were going in. And basically, when Modern Warfare 2019 came out, it sealed the deal for me. I knew and understood that Call of Duty was definitely changing, and that it would probably not come back after that. Because with Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2019, it was the whole safe space thing, and people were and in terms of the design, they went backwards in terms of the perk system, the creative class system. They also, there was just so much about that game that went backwards from what Call of Duty had done. And it was all in the name of giving people places to hide and safe spaces and stuff like that, a super fast time to kill, a created class system that would punish rushers and stuff like that. And I didn't get Modern Warfare 2019 at launch, but I was hoping things would change, so I ended up getting it anyway, and it just didn't happen. It just didn't happen. And that was a big I was really legitimately disappointed. It was really heartbreaking for me personally. Obviously, in terms of realism and tactical play, Modern Warfare 2019 was brilliant in that aspect. But in other aspects, in terms of the arcade shooter and what Call of Duty really was at its core, it just wasn't there anymore. So it was the very beginning of in my opinion, the end. I saw it coming. I saw something. I couldn't tell what it was during Black Ops 4. It's like I saw something was coming, but I just didn't know what it was. I could feel something was coming, but I just didn't know. And then in Modern Warfare 2019, it was pretty much confirmed. And then after that, things would change. Even with Call of Duty Black Ops Cold War, which in my opinion was the most arcadey of the most recent Call of Duties, there was just too much of the Modern Warfare 2019 formula in that game. And the same thing happened with what's its name? The same thing happened with the other games. But it was just a moment to where it was like, man, it's over. And the thing is, I wish I played the Vanguard beta, because with Vanguard, they implemented Dead Silence, of course, which was rusher friendly, but the map design and everything else was just pretty much Modern Warfare 2019, which actually proved to me that that it's even with Modern Warfare 2019, even if you were to use Dead Silence as a perk, even if that was available to use as a perk, guess what? It still wouldn't make a difference, because the rest of the game was designed for a very specific type of way to play, which was much slower, much much slower, much more quote unquote tactical, campy, safe space, you name it, right? Um, it was just absolutely a complete departure. Plus, Warzone was very popular, and we all know how Warzone plays, Battle Royale, and everything like that. So, Call of Duty was not Call of Duty anymore. And of course, you had the engagement optimization matchmaking, which when I played Cold War, which was the one that I played the most out of the three, uh, it hit very hard. Like if you went on a streak, right? If you went on a streak, you would spawn and you die immediately because, people would see where you spawned. And not just that, but they would also, like, you would spawn in the awkward places to where it's like there would be no defense. So, and I ended up getting Vanguard despite the fact that I didn't play the beta, although I wish I did. But I wanted to be pleasantly surprised, and I ended up being pleasantly disappointed. Or should I say unpleasantly disappointed. So Vanguard was the final Call of Duty game that I played, and I played it all the way through Second Prestige. And by the end of November or early December, somewhere around there, I was done with it. I never picked it up, and I never played it again. And I went back and played a few of the older Call of Duties, but then I asked myself, and I said, why would I even play Call of Duty anymore? I mean, these old Call of Duties, as good as they were, it's like they're not going to fill the void forever, right? Because we've been there, we've done that, we grinded those games, the weapons, the systems, and everything like that. It's not going to last forever. So, and as long as engagement optimization matchmaking remains to be a thing that is programmed into Call of Duty, I really don't see any reason as to why I would play it. There's no reason to play that game, and there's no reason to play the franchise anymore because the game is literally rigged, unfortunately. You know, I owned Vanguard for a week. I traded in. I just didn't like anything about it. I don't blame you, Corny. I don't blame you whatsoever. I don't blame you at all. Um, and it's not just because we see eye to eye, but I understand. As I've gotten older, I understand people's different likes and dislikes and stuff like that. Which is why I can never, like, for instance, I don't like battle royales, right? I respectfully don't like battle royales. They're just not my thing. But I respect the genre, and I respect people that love them. As a matter of fact, my best friend loves battle royale. He's really taken to it, and I respect that. But it's just not my thing, right? Do not like battle royales at all. But that doesn't mean that it's necessarily a bad thing. But the thing is, with Call of Duty nowadays, it's not, the biggest thing that bothers me isn't the fact that the game has changed into like this tactical type of shooter or mini battle royale for multiplayer. But the thing that gets to me the most is the fact that it's the engagement optimization matchmaking. And then you got people out there, even content creators that know about this, but they still promote the game. And I, out of my 8 years of doing this thing on YouTube, 8 years and 3 months doing this YouTube thing, the first 6 to 6.5 years were dedicated to Call of Duty. And after I stopped doing that, obviously my YouTube channel and everything else stopped growing and stuff. But then here comes, after all these years, here comes XDefiant, and now here we are again. So it's like, if a small fry like me can all of a sudden, gain a little bit of traction and kind of come back from the dead, so to speak, through a different game, it's like, well, these other content creators can too. I don't know. I could be wrong. I'm not a YouTube pro or anything, but let's see. I love BR, but I respect and understand the indifference towards BR. I also agree that every game needs one. Yeah, you know what? In this day and age, a lot of games need a BR. Yes. Well, a lot of games. I don't think every game does, but a lot of them do. Yeah. Halo being a prime example. Right now, Halo is working on a BR called what's it called? Project Tatanka. And let's be real for a minute here. I'm actually excited for the Battle Royale community because with Halo, with Halo, the interesting thing is that it has the perfect setup. Um, yeah, not every game needs one. Yeah, I figured that's kind of what you meant, but I get it. But Halo is the perfect type of game for battle royale, in my opinion. It's got everything it needs. You know, you got a lot of weapons, you got a lot of vehicles, you got, you know, the Spartans and all that other stuff. So it's got the potential to make a hell of a battle royale. Also, one that's different, you know, in its own thing, apart from Fortnite and apart from Apex and apart, you know, from the other battle royales. That's what's going to make the difference, is the fact that Halo is gonna be like different compared to all of these other battle royale games, right? Because Halo is Halo, right? And to make a battle royale version of that Halo type of feel and gameplay, I think it would be very interesting for the entire battle royale community. And I'm actually very excited for them because it's coming. It's already been kind of leaked and it's already coming, and it's going to run in Unreal Engine 5. And right now, recently, 343 has fired or gotten rid of like nearly 100 devs. And right now, they're just working on a new Halo. Now, we don't know exactly what that Halo is going to be. Now, we know that it's not going to be a part of the Battle Royale. I mean, it's probably going to have similarities, but we don't think it's going to be the part of the Battle Royale because it's made by a different development team. It's going to be made by 343, and then these other guys, which I don't forget what they're called, are making the Battle Royale. So let's see, what are you saying here? I feel Halo needs one just because they need something. It's such a good game. Yes, I wish it was managed better. Yes, like right now, it's got the potential to be managed better because ultimately, the heads of 343, Bonnie Ross, Frank O'Connor, and Kiki Wolfkill are no longer there, right? And right now, Pierre, and I don't remember his full name, Pierre is the guy that basically worked on the Master Chief Collection and got that thing up and running and improved. Because if Master Chief Collection launched terribly, just like Halo Infinite launched not so good. So, but Master Chief Collection was just bad. But ultimately, with um, ultimately um, with Halo running on Unreal Engine 5, brand new multiplayer experience, and with the right management, could let me tell you something. Halo Infinite. I'm gonna say this, right? Halo Infinite Halo Infinite is a game that feels really good. Halo Infinite is possibly the best feeling Halo game ever made. But it's got a lack of content on launch, and a few things just don't work optimally. Like, it's also got a desync problem. That's the problem with Halo as well. It's got a severe desync problem, and that's the problem with the gameplay. But in terms of the weapons, the sandbox, the competitive maps, now we got Forge mode, which is even better. Now they've added in a progression system that's not as good as Halo Reach, but a progression system nonetheless. And it's got a pretty good grind to it. Rumor is that Firefight is coming next in the next season in less than 3 months from now. So that's good as well. But so much of this content, especially now with season 4, should have been at launch. And it took them 1 year and 7 months to get to where we are now with Halo Infinite. And I think it was all because of the engine itself. Because it was made on the Slipspace engine, which was supposed to be like revolutionary and stuff, but it was hard to make for, and I guess hard to learn and implement. I don't know. I mean, yes, as far as raw gameplay and weapons, it's top tier. Yeah. As far as the sandbox, I have like For Halo Infinite, I've got very small. In order to make me truly happy with the game, I've got three requests. I would love the Magnum to replace the Sidekick. I would love that if it could. The Halo 5 Magnum, I would have loved that, but I understand why it's not. But that's just kind of, I want the desync to be fixed. I want, because throughout every single Halo, the hit detection was so good. I mean, Halo 5's hit detection was so good. I mean, Halo 4, same thing. I mean, Halo never really had that problem before. And, with Halo Infinite, it's like, oh, it's like, that's the thing, is because that's why a lot of players are so pissed off with Halo Infinite, because the game feels so incredible. It feels so incredible, but yet it doesn't follow through. It's kind of like it's kind of like how do I put this? I don't know. It's kind of like a beautiful woman, but you know, she seems like she could be the most beautiful thing ever, but then her personality sucks, or something like that, right? It's like it's got all the potential in the world, and then there's this one or two little things that are just making the difference in this game in terms of like, in terms of the bad stuff. So, um, I mean, my goodness, man. I would say that that's the thing about Halo Infinite that would piss off a lot of players. It's the game with the most potential ever that didn't reach its goal, and a lot of people were very much anticipating it. And speaking of anticipation, you know what? Going back to Call of Duty for a minute, you know what really gets to me is that people are like hyping the Treyarch game. It's like, dude, have these content creators not forgotten that engagement optimization matchmaking is going to be in the Treyarch game? Activision is not going to get rid of engagement optimization matchmaking. It's simple as that. Apparently, it makes them too much money, so they're not going to get rid of it. I mean, I personally think it's BS because, at least to some extent, I think it's BS because, well, they were already making billions before engagement optimization matchmaking was fully implemented, which I believe started in 2017. And if not put in full force in 2019 and beyond. So it's like, dude, like, have you guys forgotten that it's rigged? I mean, they can make the best Call of Duty ever, but yet, if it's rigged, then why in the hell would you play? Why would you want to play a game that's rigged? Seriously, why would you want to play a game that's rigged? I mean, if let's say if you watch professional sports and if you knew that things were rigged, would you still watch professional sports? I mean, or would you be as much into it as you are now? I mean, come on, seriously. Like, if you knew it was rigged for a certain team to win or for things to happen the way they do, it's like, would you support that? Hell no. So why would you support Call of Duty? Why would you play the game? I mean, that's why I quit Madden. What happened with Madden? And I apologize, I'm not as familiar with Madden, but what happened with Madden? Like, I know it's cut and paste every year. They hardly do anything to that game, and they release it every year. Like, what happened? Rigged gameplay? Like, what do you mean rigged gameplay? Like, in terms of the multiplayer, or like the online multiplayer, they rigged it? Like engagement optimization matchmaking? Are you serious? Or is it pay to win? Like, rigged or pay to win? Situational animations, CPU difficulty spikes and dumb moments. Really? That's interesting. And also pay to win on, really? Okay. And that's amazing, isn't it? It's like, no matter what happens in terms of people, what's it called? In terms of the game malfunctioning or not working properly, the store always works, right? It's pretty amazing, isn't it? It's like, no matter what, the store is always going to work. So doesn't that amaze you a little bit? Like that the store just is the only thing that ends up working in the game after, so much time and so much malfunctions and things that don't work in the game that should work, but the store always works, you know? Uh yeah, the store will never die, yeah. But like I can't express with words just how excited I am for XDefiant to come out because like I think we mentioned it in the very beginning of the stream. It's like one of the things that we love or loved about Call of Duty, for instance, right? We got to play that new game every year, and it was the midnight release, or I mean, granted, now things are all digital now, which is perfectly fine, but like the excitement of that new game, that new arcade shooter experience, and everybody's on an even playing field, no skill based matchmaking and stuff like that, and we're finally getting it again. And also, just like I mentioned, I think in a video or in a stream, like I used to celebrate with like getting junk food on that night. Like on that night, I it never fails. I always get, well, okay, let me rephrase that. It may not be junk food all the time, but takeout, because I don't eat junk food as much anymore. But it's gonna be takeout of some kind, right? I mean, I remember in Black Ops 4, it was Five Guys. In COD World War II, it was another burger joint, like from a restaurant. So and I don't care how much money it costs either. Like if I get the world's greatest burger for $50, I don't give a damn. I'm gonna eat that burger if I want to eat it. So but ultimately, yeah, I mean, I really hope XDefiant is good. I'm very excited for it. All the other games I've been excited for have let me down. Yeah, I 100% agree. And also another thing that's really exciting is the fact that the dev support is absolutely incredible. Like I'm legitimately like amazed with the amount of transparency and the kind of dev support that we're getting. And by the time the first year life cycle of this game is over, it's going to be huge because like the game is going to have, an additional 12 maps. It's going to have an additional, no, I'm sorry. It's going to have an additional 12, yeah, an additional 12 maps and an additional 12 weapons and all that. So I haven't tried the beta and I can't even wait for this game yet. Yeah. I mean, let me tell you, man. Now, on one hand, it's kind of good that you didn't try the beta. You know why? Because you'll get to experience the game at its best, right? Like it's going to be the best version at the time when the game comes out. So you're going to experience the best, obviously, the best version of it. But another thing is that it's going to be completely new. You're not going to be like as familiar with it as the people that have played the beta, right? I mean, it's obviously a good overall. It's a good thing, So it's really good to be legitimately excited for a game and its new experience entirely. Because some people, I remember back in the day, back when COD games were good and stuff, I remember some people legitimately were like, what's it called? They would say that that they purposely wouldn't play the beta simply because of the fact that they wanted to be completely surprised. So, so I think ultimately it's gonna be a great experience. I think the game itself is going to be that kind of game that may, like, it doesn't need to be a Call of Duty killer. A lot of people are like, well, it's gonna kill Call of Duty or it's trying to be a COD killer. No, it's not. It doesn't need to be either. So that's the thing. It just needs to take another route to get to where it needs to be, which is us, the audience, right? In order to get to us, it just has to take a different route because other franchises like Call of Duty have taken a certain route, and guess what? They're not able to reach us, right? And I mean, granted, I don't even think they're going for us. They're going for the money. But what these devs are doing here with XDefiant is they're actually trying to reach the player base, if you think about it. And at the same time, if they are in good with the player base, they're going to get their money. I mean, to this day, I've never bought a battle pass in any game. I really haven't. And let me tell you, I will get the XDefiant battle pass if they continue on this trend. Like after the game comes out, and if they're still giving the game all the support and shit like that, and if everything that they've said remains true and holds true, let me tell you, I am going to buy the battle pass. I'm telling you, I am getting the battle pass. And as a matter of fact, I'm even thinking about doing a stream to where I will be giving away Xbox Live and PlayStation, codes or whatnot, gift cards to people so that way they can get the battle pass if they want to. We're going to have like a contest or something like that. I'm just going to be giving it away. You don't have to be subscribed. You don't have to, I mean, obviously you have to follow me on Twitter in order to be able to get the codes via DM, we can have contests and stuff like that and play games while I stream it and while you guys play games. And it's like, it's like, hey, you guys want the battle pass? Here you go. It's on me. So um, they're just another fish trying to live in the same pond. People over compare, and it's set expectations. Yeah. See, that's the thing. Also, is like we need to I'm obviously optimistic about the game, and I know you are too, Corny Puddle. But with that being said, being um, being optimistic, I mean, we also have to be cautious about it, right? We can't. How do I put this? We can't. We legitimately can't be. We can't put all our eggs in one basket, right? We've been let down way too many times by so many Call of Duty developers, and not just Call of Duty, but other developers as well. A lot of people were really betting on Halo Infinite, and unfortunately, they lost that bet. And only a very small percentage of players are left that are playing that game. I mean, it's about 40,000 people that may go up or down a little bit here and there, but it's, I mean, seriously, um, it's 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 just factual. We just have to be we have to be optimistic, but cautiously optimistic. We have to be very, very careful with everything. So, but I honestly think that the game's going to succeed. I think the game's going to succeed. I'm calling it now. I think the game is going to succeed. Is it going to be like, I don't know. I mean, let's see. We had 1.6 million people playing the closed beta, and then we had probably more playing the open beta. So I think those are good numbers. Listen, all this game needs to do at this point right now is to launch as smoothly as possible, right? And then 6 weeks after that, we have a progression system, and then obviously all the old consoles by then will be able to play as well. I personally think that the last gen consoles are going to come either at launch with the rest of us or slightly after launch, but before the 6 week preseason is over. I think that the last gen consoles are also going to enjoy part of the 6 week preseason, to be honest with you. That's my main prediction. And I know that the devs are going to be on it, and they listen to our feedback, they communicate on the feedback. So everything we tell them, they're going to take it in. And we're not just talking about things like bugs and problems and stuff like that. We're literally talking about like what this game could do to like last. Because ultimately, when you think about it, what makes games last longer is when you listen to the community. Because look at games like I don't know, like CS:GO, or look at games like Fortnite even, right? There's a certain type of communication you have to have with your with, I almost said consumers, but with your with the people that play your game, and the feedback that they have is completely like it's priceless, man. Because it's like your customers, it's like you're providing food from a restaurant or something like that, and they're saying, and you're like, hey, what do you think of this? So I hope it drops at the same time or close to it. I'm stuck on PS4. I'm too impulsive to spend 500. I trust me, dude. I get it. I understand. And with what's it called? With it's on the tip of my tongue. But and with inflation and everything like that, it's even harder. It's hard for people. People are having a hard time, and at the same time, people are putting in money where they need to put it in. I totally get it. I mean, a lot of players will say, well, last gen is going to slow everything down and stuff like that. And it's like, I get what you're saying, and it may or may not be true. But at the same time, it's like, dude, you can't forget about other members of the player base that for whatever reason are just not able to access, a new gen console right now. And at the same time, it's only going to help the player base. And quite frankly, in the closed beta, we were only limited to 60 frames per second. In the open beta, we had 120 frames if you had one of the newer consoles, right? So, and let me tell you, I mean, obviously the net code was the old net code. So from a net code standpoint, it wasn't as good, obviously, because it was the old net code. But as far as the frames are concerned, let me tell you, XDefiant had a smooth 60 frames throughout the entire closed beta. I can tell you. So, I mean, and 60 frames for a competitive multiplayer shooter, especially on console. I mean, obviously 120 would be nice. and it's preferred, but 60 frames, as long as you get a solid 60 frames, that's all you need. Because when you think about it, the best Call of Duty games, the best arcade shooters throughout history so far have been running on 60 frames. I mean, let's put it this way. Oh yeah, yeah. I feel for those players as well. Like, let's put it this way, right? Let me ask you this question: would you rather play, Modern Warfare Modern Warfare 2019? Oh well, no. Let me rephrase this question. Would you rather play Black Ops 2 at 120 frames a second, but with engagement optimization matchmaking in it? Or would you rather play Black Ops 2 at 60 frames per second with no engagement optimization matchmaking in it? Answer that question for me, please. And please be honest. Don't, like, which of the two would you rather have? Would you rather have more frames and engagement optimization matchmaking, or would you have 60 frames but no engagement optimization matchmaking? What would be your choice? And if anybody else is in the chat, they can feel free to answer that as well. Horny Puddle says 16. Says 60. I agree. I wholeheartedly agree. And basically it proves that, like, you know, despite the fact that Black Ops 2 was not as advanced as some of the current Call of Duties due to frame rate and some other shit, right? It's still a better game because it didn't have engagement optimization matchmaking. And let's not mention the fact that Black Ops 2 was very innovative and very supportive. Let's just be real here, okay? So, yeah, that just goes to show you, man, frames are not everything. You know, I would rather have a 60 framed gem instead of 100 frames of shit. So, yeah, frames are definitely not everything. So, it's absolutely, like, it just goes to show you, man. It just goes to show you. I'm not big on frame numbers. Red Dead 2 came out in 30 and it looks beautiful. Yeah, I mean, no, I mean, in terms of looks, you know, frames don't really make much of a difference in looks, but it's all about the smoothness, right? I mean, obviously, I didn't like. Again, I would never go. I would never, like. There's a couple of games that I would play on 30 frames. I mean, but none of those are multiplayer games. You know, with multiplayer games, you need at least 60. But despite all that, you need 60, but you also need, there are certain things that you just need, and 60 is your minimum, man. You know, 60 should be the minimum, and if it's a smooth running 60, I mean, you're good. I mean, look at Starfield. Starfield's going to release at 30, dude. You know, unless you have a PC, then you're going to be able to be capped at 60, I think. But Starfield's going to be 30, you know. So all the other elements of that game are going to have to kind of make up for it. But Starfield's not a multiplayer game. That's the difference. So, you know, with multiplayer shooters, especially crossplay ones, you know, you got to have at least a minimum of 60. And I can wholeheartedly tell you that when I played XDefiant at 60 in the closed beta, it was it was a good experience. You know, except obviously for the netcode, but the frame rate was smooth, at least for me. I mean, everybody had a different experience, but it was smooth for me. And even the 120 frames that they released recently, it still needed work apparently, but for the most part, it was smooth. There were a couple times when it did dip below 120, but for the most part, it was there. It was there at 120. So, you know, I mean, obviously the footage that you're seeing here was from the open beta, I believe. Yeah. You're seeing it at 60, but it was recorded and played at 120. So, I mean, well, recorded at 60, but it was played at 120. There you go. That's what I meant to say. Recorded and streamed at 60, but played at 120. But let me tell you, man, this game, like, ultimately this game just needs to get the bare essentials right. And if it does that and it continues to build and everything like that, like, there's this game is going to reach its potential, no doubt about it, and it's going to have an impact on the industry. Especially, I mean, Fortnite had the impact on battle royale and stuff like that, and you never know. XDefiant may have a similar type of impact for the arcade shooter, and the arcade shooter deserves it, man, because for so long we've been neglected, we've been ignored, there and all that other bullshit that goes on. I mean, it's insane. So I'm glad that we're finally getting it. So it's going to be a little bit bare bones when it comes out, but within 6 weeks or so, after 6 weeks later, we're going to get a little bit more, and then every month and then every 3 months we're going to get like these big content drops with game modes and all that other shit. It's like, the game's going to have everything it needs in order to go from A to B. I'm not worried about it because the game is in good hands. If the developers were to do a complete 180 or 360 and then just do the complete opposite after the game launches or something like that, then it's like, okay, then screw you, I'm not supporting that. We're not going to fall for a bait and switch like some of these other games have been doing to us. So but I don't think they're going to do that. Mark Rubin and crew have been nothing but completely transparent. So, and they're aware of everything. And remember, Mark Rubin also used to be, he didn't just run Ghosts, but he also was an executive producer at Activision as well, and he's an executive producer right now at Ubisoft. So need I say more? This guy knows how things work. So he knows what's good and what's not. And at the same time, he's also a gamer himself. He actually plays the games that he's developing. So, being a good player and being a player, you got to know what you're talking about, right? It's kind of like being a cook, right? You can't just, it's one thing when you're the restaurant owner because you've got the money, but it's a whole other thing when you actually have been in the restaurant business for so long and you own the business and you know what it's like to be a cook, you know what it's like to be a chef, you know what it's like to be a server, stuff like that. It's a whole other level, firsthand. So therefore, it hits different. The quality is going to be different. It's going to be better. You truly understand. You don't just understand from theory. You understand from experience. So that's why I'm optimistic about XDefiant, man. There's no reason to not be optimistic about XDefiant. XDefiant it's just got too much potential. For a little game with a much smaller budget than Call of Duty, it's got all the potential in the world because it's hitting all the notes right so far. So if it releases in a fairly smooth state, and I mean, we're in for a treat, dude. We're getting an arcade shooter experience. I mean, what else could we need, right? That's all we need. That's all we wanted. We want an arcade shooter experience without all the bullshit and with everything that we've come to know and love from this kind of genre. Battle Royale has been getting it. Well, I mean, they've also been getting their fair share of bullshit as well. But, just the fact that there's no skill-based matchmaking in pubs in this game is, I think it's going to kind of bring a lot of games back. If other games are going to be influenced by it, I think it's going to bring a lot of players back. I mean, a lot of games as well. So it's like, hey, what game doesn't have skill-based matchmaking? XDefiant. Ooh, let me play that. So yeah, and I'm glad that they're actually not focusing on BR either. They need to get all their ducks in a row with the base game and establish a base on that and build from that, and then maybe later on they might. So, but yeah, I'm optimistic, dude. I'm optimistic for the future of this game. So anyway, with that being said, I've been streaming for over 2 hours. So I'm gonna call it a stream. I've also been recording, so I might cut this up in different chapters and post it on the channel as videos. I'm not sure, but my entire Call of Duty history has pretty much been discussed. So we got that out of the way. So later on, I will probably be discussing other stuff in the next stream. But yeah, that's pretty much it. So I gotta go. It is 5:15 a.m. in the morning over here. I gotta try to attempt to get some sleep, and I gotta go to work tomorrow. So, but yeah, thank you very much for the company. You were great. It was, I want to do more of these. I want to have the company. I absolutely love it. So, thank you very much for the kind words, and thank you everybody else who liked, and thank you for anybody else who's still in here. I'll catch you guys on the next video and or stream. Enjoy the rest of your day. Have a good day tomorrow, and I'll catch you guys on the next one. Take care.